Chapter 804. Did you make a mistake? Chu Tian couldn't help asking Dolores beside him, how does this fellow look like a god? Dolores's face was filled with sincerity. When she heard Chu Tian say this, she angrily glared at him, you dare insult the great demonic god, that means you're going against my demonic god religion. Demonic god religion? I've never heard of it before. But it should be a religion similar to the Druid religion or Shaman religion. It wasn't a human sect like the heavenly demon cult, there was a fundamental difference between the two. Sects focused on passing down cultivation techniques, so their members were very concentrated, belonging to a very cohesive force. Religious forces focused on passing down faith, of course they also had their own cultivation techniques, but their members weren't as concentrated. The same faith could not only cross regions, it could even cross races. What is going on with your demonic god religion? Chu Tian ignored Dolores's hostile gaze, there's also the druids and shamans. How many religions are there in this place? Dolores didn't want to talk to this fellow who had injured the spirit monkey and disrespected the demonic god, but the demonic god was brought here by him, so Dolores could only give a simple explanation. It turned out that religion was very popular in the depths of the Forest of Chaos. After all, this forest was too ancient, so there were many ancient things that had been passed down. Although there were many religions, in this area, the strongest were the Druid religion, the Shaman religion, the Undead religion, and the Green religion. As for the demonic god religion that the Fox people believed in, it could only be considered a second-rate power. Green religion? Chu Tian was stunned, what relationship does the Green religion have with Green City? This fellow really seemed like an outsider, he didn't even know this. The Green religion is a group of fellows that believe in the forest god and their religion is a branch of the elves. The Green religion had a large influence in the forest before, but now they have declined and can't compare to the druids and shamans. So it was like this. The Green religion was a branch of the elves, so it was no wonder the Elven King could obtain Green City through diplomacy. Chu Tian never thought that the powers here would be this complicated. Just these religions were enough to give him a headache. This was because the believers of the churches were very fanatical and this kind of person was the most troublesome to deal with. The cultivation techniques of these religious believers were very special. For example, if a fire god religion believer had a water-attributed source spirit, cultivating a fire-attributed cultivation technique was simply seeking death. But if they cultivated a fire-attributed cultivation technique, as long as their faith was strong enough, the power of faith could prevent the cultivation technique from backfiring on their source spirit. Therefore, the deeper their faith, the deeper their cultivation would be. Therefore, the cultivation techniques passed down by religions were mostly related to their faith. The object of worship of these religious believers was not as simple as spiritual sustenance, rather it was related to their cultivation, so the believers would be more fanatical and devout. The move Dolores had just used was clearly a summoning technique similar to the foxes. This summoning technique had never been seen in any cultivation technique, so even Chu Tian did not understand it. It should be a special demonic technique used by the ancient demon race. It was almost certain that normal people could not use this demonic technique. Even if Chu Tian wanted to learn it, he couldn't, but these fox people could use it. They were not from the ancient demon race. There was only one possibility. A certain ancient demonic god had used a certain method to create this religion, allowing these low-level beings to believe in it and use its power. Chu Tian did not know the motivation of the ancient demonic gods to create this religion, but there was a saying that the faith of all living beings was a great power and the demonic gods could absorb the power of faith to become stronger. If it was like this, the little fox's ancestor might have a connection with these fox people. There was a tall temple in the center of the local tribe. The temple was made from the bones of giant beasts and giant boulders, being over 100 meters tall. It was very grand and magnificent, but looking at how it had been eroded by the wind, this temple had a very long history. This tribe was very small, with a total population of less than 20,000 people. Don't think that they were easy to bully just because they were small, the entire tribe was filled with devout believers of the demonic god religion and most of them could summon demon beasts to fight. Other than that, the demonic god religion was proficient in taming beasts, just like the spirit monkeys outside the forest. They were all tamed by the demonic god religion, so they could not be underestimated. At least they could sweep through any tribe on the outside. The little fox had already turned back to its original form. It was only the size of a palm, but it was sent to the high altar by the zealous believers, receiving the prayers of the fox people kneeling down. The little fox also quickly got into its role. Although it was only a little big, it curled its tail and sat upright on it. Its pair of black eyes were shining, and it had a dignified posture like a lion. It swept its gaze across everyone and then raised its paw, indicating for everyone to rise. Chu Tian rolled his eyes, too lazy to watch this fox act cool. He walked around by himself. There were many totems in the temple, and the one that appeared the most frequently was a fierce and majestic nine-tailed demon fox. The young miss had records of the nine-tailed demon fox in her heavenly book memories. Legend has it that in the ancient demon race that coexisted with gods and demons in the great ancient era, the nine-tailed demon fox was the ruler of 10,000 demons, the king of 10,000 demons. They grasped all the powerful demonic techniques of the demon race, and their might could even make gods and demons retreat. It seemed like the little fox really was the nine-tailed demon fox's descendant. Chu Tian was still a little confused. The nine-tailed demon fox's descendant had been bred in a 10,000-year-old Yin corpse for 10,000 years. After being born in that kind of evil environment, not only did the little fox have its ancestors' abilities, it also seemed like it had the ability to break through evil energies. At this time, there were excited and joyful cheers coming from the temple. The little fox was on a stone slab, using its fingernails to write strange words. Chu Tian didn't recognize a single one of these words. It should be the language of the demon race. From the looks of joy in the followers' eyes, this should be how to use a certain demonic technique. These followers all bowed their heads in thanks. When the ceremony finished, the Fox clan's men, women, and children all brought in all kinds of good things. There were spirit fruits, crystals, and demon jades, all of which were used to worship the little fox. The little fox was happy to the point of forgetting home. It had never been worshipped like this before, with all these good things being given to it. Compared to this, its master was too vile, constantly beating it for eating too much. The little fox's proud appearance made Chu Tian want to punch it, but Chu Tian knew in his heart that if he beat the fox in this situation, he would be beaten up by the crazy followers. He would endure it for now. In the end, this was an unexpected harvest. Chu Tian came to Green City to gather information and also to see if he could rope in a few locals, but he did not have much hope because the locals here were very strong and it would not be easy for an outsider like Chu Tian to enter. Now it was good, he had saved quite a bit of effort. This demonic god religion was a bit weak, but being able to stand here meant that they had some strength. Moreover, they had lived here for many years, so they had a good understanding of the situation around Green City. They were the allies Chu Tian needed the most. Everyone should have seen that I am a companion of your demonic god, so we are not enemies. With these words, everyone was stunned. They all looked at the little fox that was gorging itself on the food. The little fox felt everyone's gaze and suddenly stopped. It looked up at Chu Tian and its heart instantly bloomed with joy. Master, Master, I never thought that there would be a day where you would ask this fox for help. As long as this fox gives the order, I will strip you naked and give you a spanking to take revenge for you hitting my butt. Chu Tian's eyes flashed with an ominous glow as he looked at it. The little fox gave a snort and could only nod before continuing to eat. The old fox man who was also the high priest quickly stood up. Since your excellency is the demonic god's friend, then of course you are our most respected guest. If there is anything we can help you with, our demonic god religion will not decline. This was more like it. Chu Tian cleared his throat. Since the high priest has said this, I will honestly introduce myself. Actually, I am the new city lord of Green City and I came here alone this time mainly to inquire about the situation. Green City City Lord. Everyone looked at him with a strange expression. When did the Green City's city lord become a human? Wasn't this city conquered by the elves just a few days ago? The relationship between the elves and humans was not good, it could even be said to be very unfriendly. How could the elves give an important city like Green City to a human? However, they had no choice but to believe it. Chu Tian directly took out the Elven King's token. The fox people were in an uproar. They never would have thought that this young man would be the city lord appointed by the Eternal Forest. If he could really sit in the city lord position, then the surrounding 1,000 miles would be his territory. These demonic god religion followers would naturally accept the city lord's management. The high priest was the calmest. He gave a few soft coughs. Although your excellency is the city lord, with Green City's current situation, if you want to sit in the city lord's throne, I'm afraid it won't be an easy matter. Chu Tian liked dealing with smart people. This would save him a lot of effort. Although most of the fox people were acting like a group of idiots, worshipping this damn fox and trying to please him, the fox race had the highest intelligence among the spirit beasts. This was a very smart race, and as long as they were properly trained, they would become natural profiteers or sly politicians. For the high priest to be the leader of these people, he could see the relationship between their demonic god and this young man. The demonic god came with this young man, and from the young man's disrespectful gaze towards the demonic god, perhaps even their demonic god had to compromise with Yao. This young man called himself Green City's city lord, but he came alone without any troops. Although his strength wasn't bad, it was only not bad. Just the demonic god religion alone had over 50 people that could deal with him. He most likely had the qualifications to be the city lord, but he didn't have the strength to sit in that position, so he came alone. If they helped him when he didn't have the strength to become the city lord, then when this person became the Green City's city lord in the future, wouldn't it be very helpful to the demonic god religion? Chapter 805. The elven councillors were elected, and the elves participating had to meet a series of requirements. For example, they had to be over 500 years old, be in the third true spirit layer or higher, have a good character, follow ancient customs, and have integrity. It was because of this election system that the elven councillors were all stubborn old men. The elves that reached the true spirit realm could live for around 1,000 years. The current chairman was a living fossil that was over 1,000 years old. With the chairman's strength and abilities, living for another 300-400 years was not a problem. The vitality of the elves was too strong. This led to the slow metabolism of new elves. The new generation of elves would always be shrouded in the influence of the older generation of elves for a long period of time. The Elven Council would also change very slowly. With the control of these old elves, even if there were some radical and innovative new elves, as long as they worked with these old elves for 100 or 200 years, they would become a new stubborn old elf. The elven etiquette, the elven faith, and the elven character had already become a firm shackle. It had locked the elves of the continent for close to 10,000 years. 10,000 years was not a long time for the elven civilization, at most it would be 10 generations of leaders. But for the spirit beasts and humans, it was enough to change the world. A continent overlord that once looked down on 10,000 races. Now it had already declined beyond recognition. Even in the forest of chaos, the influence of the elves was still the same. The elves did not think about how to revive their race, rather they thought about how to protect the dignity of the elves, how to protect the noble image of the elves, and how to distinguish the elves from the other races of the continent. Little did they know that in the eyes of humans, the elves had already become a group of strange creatures. Even the low and warlike spirit beasts disdained the elves. This human Chu Tian is so cruel. An elven council member loudly proposed, just for a single victory, he doesn't care about the ancient trees that have grown for thousands of years, he doesn't care about the life and death of the animals in the forest. This kind of selfish action should be punished and boycotted by the elves. That's right, reconsider. An elven council member stood up, everything has life, even a stronger expert can't casually bring disaster to other creatures. This kind of cruel method, it's simply polluting the forest. It's a blasphemy against the forest and nature. If there were humans here, they would definitely laugh at the elves' discussion. To protect a small forest, could they disregard the victory of the war? The elves might be able to do something like this, but the humans were completely stupid. An elven council member suddenly pointed his spear at an elder sitting next to the chairman. Vice Speaker Ulysses, you had the chance to execute this human, but you let him leave the ancient Tree of Life forest, so all of this happened. You should take responsibility for this. Ulysses said with knit brows, I've already investigated this matter and given the relevant report to everyone. Chu Tian's matter is pardonable and there is no malicious intent to abduct the elves. Chu Tian is a great talent that is rarely seen in 10,000 years. If the elves don't handle this properly, I'm afraid we will be cursed for 10,000 years. Let's not talk about Chu Tian's matter. Another elven council member criticized, Vivian is the elf that has violated the most rules in the last 100 years. Not only did you not punish her, you even let Vivian go. Doing a wrong like this and not being punished, where is the spirit of the elves? What kind of bad influence will this have on the other young elves? Have you considered these problems? That's right. Vice Speaker, this matter is not handled properly. No matter what that human does, it is a fact that Vivian violated the rules. Ulysses was a bit unhappy. Vivian already has spatial technology in his hands. This is a great technology that can change the elves' lives. I'm letting him return to Chu Tian's side to learn more knowledge and contribute to the elves. The elves are living very well right now, we don't need to change anything. Since when did the elves learn from low-level humans? This is simply insulting the noble elves. When the elven council members were criticizing him, there were only a few that kept their mouths shut. These were all members of the reformist faction, but the old guard faction was too strong. According to the elves' traditions, once they started arguing, there wouldn't be a result for several days and nights. The elven king couldn't sit still. Let's stop here for today, we'll discuss these problems later. The council members did not have any objections. The elves had a habit of dragging things out. After all, their lives were too long and their lives were too leisurely. Things that could be done in a day could be done in 10 days, so they would discuss it tomorrow. After the elven king dismissed the meeting, he walked to the corridor alone. The elven palace's corridor was built on a cliff and there were several white jade waterfalls hanging on the side. Looking down from the suspended corridor, one could see the entire eternal forest. The sun was releasing a glow. Every inch of the eternal forest was covered in a dignified aura. The twilight's orange sunlight shined down on the vibrant forest as the elves carved, sang, and painted. That peaceful atmosphere could make any ambitious person sink. The elven king's statue-like face revealed a trace of helplessness. With the elves' current situation, he was powerless. The continent's elves were already scattered like sand and the elves were still immersed in this peaceful atmosphere. Would they only wake up when the flames of war reached the forest? Perhaps it would already be too late by then. Ulysses walked beside the elven king. There's news from Green City that there's a plague in the surroundings and a foreign race riot. The city is already in chaos and the situation is not good. If we don't send troops, we'll lose this city that we just captured. Send troops? The elven king shook his head. Will the council agree? Ulysses revealed a blank look. We've spent this much effort to obtain this city. Do we have to give it up like this? We can't not give it up. When the elven king said this, there was a spark in his mind. After this spark appeared, it was like he had fallen into oil and it suddenly burned. A thought filled his mind. Abandoning doesn't mean giving up. It can be used for other purposes. Ulysses was a bit surprised. What did you say? The elven king turned to look at Ulysses. I'm very interested in that human youth called Chu Tian. They can manage a small town well, meaning they have the ability, but a small town is still a small town in the end. Not to mention it's on the edge of the forest, so no matter how lively it is, it won't be able to make a name for itself. Ulysses could already guess the elven king's thoughts. Your meaning is? The elven army can't be used, so we'll find a reliable friend to help. I think that what Chu Tian needs the most right now is a city. Only by having a true city in the forest can he display his talents in the forest. I'll give him a city. Not only will it not fall into other people's hands, but it will also help a friend at the right time. Chu Tian's influence is too weak in the end. This city is not normal, can he really control the situation? There will be risks, so we can only secretly help as much as we can. The Elven King said this, but don't forget, humans are a race that likes to take risks. As long as the benefits are big enough, even if they know there are risks, they will not hesitate. This is the biggest difference between humans and elves. Ulysses was helpless and dejected. It was indeed like this. The Elven King waved his hand and said, "Go. This city will still be under the Eternal Forest's name and he will become the legitimate city lord. As for whether or not he can control this city, it will depend on his abilities." Yes. Ulysses left the Eternal Forest. He rode the dragon hawk beast to Oldman's small town in a day and night. At this time, Oldman's small town was still in the joy of a large victory. People from different races and powers were all drinking and chatting in the small town. Ulysses walked into the underground town. Although Oldman's small town was not big, it was brightly lit like it was daytime. All the buildings were scattered and each street was like blood vessels. There were merchants and townspeople moving through the streets like blood vessels, filling this small place with vitality. This was something that could not be seen in the Elven City. The small town had a movie theater, a hotel, and a training hall. Each place had its own characteristics, attracting a large amount of people. But the most lively place was the Oldman Market. The current Oldman Market was very famous. No matter how many materials there were in the forest, as long as they were transported, they could be sold by the market. The locals wanted to buy pills, talismans, or other daily necessities. No matter how big the demand was, the small town could directly supply it. This kind of strong supply and demand ability filled the market with vitality, giving birth to many small merchants. The big-eared monsters, the goblins, the mouse people, and the rabbit people, these weak races were everywhere. The ogres did not rob them. These large fellows knew how to buy resources from other small towns and then use their thick shoulders and strong stamina to sell them in Oldman's small town. They used the source stones they earned to buy their favorite canned food, or they directly went to the hotel to eat a big meal. Oldman's small town did not discriminate. Every race was treated equally, and they lived in harmony here. This prosperity was supported by spatial transportation. With this kind of great technology in the hands of an elf, it was very likely that the elves could use it. The old fellows of the Elven Council all disdained this, which made Ulysses feel very sad and helpless. "What did you say?" Chu Tian almost fainted from this pie falling from the sky. "The Elven King wants to give me a city." "That's right," Ulysses said in a certain voice. "This is a large city in the center of the Forest of Chaos, with several dozen spirit veins intersecting. It is surrounded by secret realms and hidden treasures, being one of the main hubs of the Forest of Chaos. It is rich beyond imagination, and if you can control this city, you will have a lot of influence in the forest." Chapter 806. Chu Tian temporarily stayed in the Fox clan's tribe. The little fox lived the life of an emperor and each fox clan treated it as a spiritual god. The little fox would teach its followers demonic techniques from time to time, and there were some demonic techniques that even it couldn't use, but these memories had been deeply engraved in its soul since it was born. The followers became even more fanatical. Everyone could see that the little fox was still in its infancy, but it was certain that it was the descendant of the demonic god religion. Just based on this, the little fox had the qualifications to sit in the temple and accept the worship of the followers. Chu Tian gathered information on Green City while understanding the Fox clan's strength. The Fox tribe was not weak. They only had a population of 20,000, but they had more than a dozen true spirit realm experts. When he heard this number from the high priest's mouth, Chu Tian was instantly shocked. This was just too exaggerated. There were several true spirit cultivators in 20,000 people, and this was only a small-scale tribe. Then wouldn't there be over 1,000 true spirit cultivators in a large forest city with several million people? Although the Forest of Chaos had rich spiritual veins and it was easy to find high-level sacred herbs and precious herbs, so the people who grew up here were not people the southern summer barren land could compare to. However, this ratio was still a bit too shocking. The high priest explained, "No need to be shocked. My clan believes in the demonic god and the entire clan uses their power of faith to cultivate, so our cultivation base grows faster than normal cultivators." There was a difference between followers and cultivators. The cultivation techniques these followers cultivated were related to their faith. Faith itself was a kind of wonderful power that could support cultivation techniques. The stronger their faith, the faster their cultivation speed. However, this had a very clear flaw. After becoming a follower, it was very hard to cultivate any other attributed cultivation technique. Each true spirit realm expert had the qualifications to become a priest. Dolores was one of the demonic god's priests. This demonic god's priest had the strength of the peak first true spirit layer, but she could only use her demonic techniques to control summons in the peak ninth awakened soul layer. Even if she could summon several of them, it would not be easy for her to fight against experts of the same level. After all, the Fox clan was not strong and they couldn't cultivate any attributed cultivation techniques, so the development of their source spirits was very low. Their battle strength could not compare to experts of the same level. This meant that in this Fox clan tribe, although there were many high cultivators, their battle strength was not that strong. However, the demonic god's followers were not only summoners, they were also strong beast tamers. These demonic gods taming demon beasts were incomparable. In the surrounding forest, other than the 100 spiritual monkeys, there were also several high-level demon beasts. There were close to 1,000 of them and they were all level 2 demon beasts. It was because of the defense of these demon beasts that the Fox clan was not swallowed by the forest of chaos. Otherwise, how could they have survived until today? Chu Tian was very interested in taming demon beasts. The little fox could directly control the mind of the demon beasts, but the little fox's control was only temporary. Although it was quick and easy to use, it could be interrupted or dispelled. These Fox clan members could not directly tame demon beasts like the demonic god race, but they could temporarily tame demon beasts. Then they would use the secret techniques and potions developed by the demonic god religion to brainwash the demon beasts, making them submit bit by bit. Although it took a long time and consumed quite a bit of resources, once the taming was successful, these tamed beasts would belong to them for a long time. Chu Tian preferred the second method in comparison. Miracle Commerce lacked an air force the most right now. Was it easy to train an air force from scratch? If he could solve the problem of taming the mounts, it would save quite a bit of effort. Since he understood the demonic god religion's abilities. Then he had to consider how to form an alliance. The high priest said, "Green City has already been occupied by the Eternal Forest, but there are still many forces left in Green City. Other than the Green Religion, there are the shamans, necromancers, and druids, as well as the shadows of large foreign forces. With just our people, we can't fight against any of them. If we fight against them, it would be no different from sending ourselves to death." Chu Tian said with a frown, "I already knew that Green City was complicated, but I never thought it would be this complicated. There were many believers gathered here and the stubbornness of these believers could not be compared to normal locals. Not to mention the fact that these believers were not weak and there were other large forest forces interfering, which made the situation even more complicated. I think we need to enter the city. There are very few humans in Green City, so you will alert them if you directly enter." The high priest said, "I'll have my clansmen buy supplies and send you in. With our cover, you don't need to worry about your identity being exposed." "This is good." At this time, a Fox clansman suddenly charged in and said, "High priest, this is bad, those stupid bulls are causing trouble again." The Fox clan's high priest's white brows slightly jumped up. "Quickly, prepare for battle." Chu Tian saw the Fox clan's anxious appearance and immediately asked, "What happened?" "There has been a famine in the forest recently and the surrounding tribes are lacking food, always reaching out to us. Do these fellows really think that the demonic god religion is a granary?" The high priest's face was terrifyingly deep. "We need to teach them a lesson." Chu Tian's heart couldn't help slightly skipping a beat. Actually, before coming here, Chu Tian already knew that there was a food shortage around Green City. Logically speaking, these ferocious natives wouldn't lack food. After all, the forest was rich in biological resources, but in reality, a native tribe's activity radius was around 200 kilometers. If a native tribe stayed in one place for a long time and hunted, then as time passed, magical beasts would avoid the native tribe's hunting area, and the natives would find it harder and harder to hunt. These large tribes had over 100,000 people, so it would be a large matter if they didn't have food for a few days. If they didn't have food for a week, it would be a famine. Every time there was a famine, it meant that war would break out. The forest city was surrounded by densely packed locals and their hunting areas overlapped, so there was less and less prey. The larger tribes had several 100,000 people, so if these several 100,000 people wanted to eat, where would the food come from? Once there was a famine, they could only steal it. Chu Tian followed the fox people into the forest. Several hundred fox people were already guarding this place. There were monkeys squatting in the trees and giant wolves hiding in the forest. The fox people were vigilantly looking in front of them. The other side had 10 times the number of the fox people, with several thousand people densely packed together. Each person was wearing primitive vine armor and they held axes or giant hammers in their hands, looking very fierce. Dolores and the priests angrily said, "Dirty, stupid minotaurs, do you want to start a war with us?" The minotaurs were 3 meters tall and were 4 times as strong as a human. They had a bull's head on their neck and there seemed to be flames flickering in their eyes. Chu Tian felt this was very interesting. The minotaurs were similar to the barbarians. They were a race that developed their physical strength, so they had the potential to become berserkers. If we wanted to start a war, we wouldn't have brought this few people and wouldn't waste words with you. A strong minotaur walked out with heavy steps. "We'll borrow some food and we'll return it in 2 months. A Fox clan priest angrily shouted, "We don't even have enough food to eat, how could we have extra to lend to you?" "That's right, quickly scram. Otherwise you won't be able to leave this forest." The minotaurs were not a race with a good temper and these fox people didn't know what was good for them, immediately angering them. The leading minotaur roared, "We've been neighbors for 10 years, are we not going to help at all? We have several thousand people that are about to starve to death and we're all going to die anyway. If we do something crazy, I hope you won't blame us for not giving face." This was a naked threat. The Fox clan members all had ugly expressions. Chu Tian asked the high priest beside him, "Are these minotaurs very strong?" The minotaurs are in the west side of the valley and have around 100,000 people. They can be considered a large power in the area. The high priest said with a calm expression, "We've been minding our own business these past few years, but now that the minotaurs are starving, they'll probably cause a large ruckus." It had been hard to find prey in the forest recently and many tribes were suffering from famine. The Fox clan was different from these places. Not only did the Fox clan know how to store food, they also knew how to grow their own food, so they could be self-sufficient in times of famine. How big was the minotaur's appetite? It wasn't inferior to the ogre's at all. A single minotaur's appetite was more than 10 fox peoples. If the Fox clan supported the minotaurs, how could the Fox clan survive? Dolores's enchanting face was filled with anger. "Greedy and despicable minotaurs, we will not submit to your strength. If you dare make a move, we'll make it so you won't be able to return." They could feel the fox people's killing intent. The surrounding monkeys and wolves in the forest all began to growl in low voices. The minotaur's eyes were red from hunger. They had gone around the surrounding tribes and most of them couldn't protect themselves, so they didn't lend them food. Compared to them, the Fox clan was easier to deal with, so since they didn't want to give it, they would steal it. The killing intent released by the minotaurs made the hearts of the Fox clan members sink. A bloody battle was hard to avoid. Although things like this often happened in the forest, with the Fox clan's current population, it would be hard for them to support this kind of bloody battle. If the tribe shrank even further, perhaps they wouldn't even have the qualifications to stay here. Why do you need to fight for a bit of food? Who is it? The minotaurs looked at Chu Tian with a strange expression. Humans were rarely seen in this area, so how could a human appear in the Fox clan? I am a merchant, so you can think of me as a food seller. Chu Tian smiled as he looked at these tall and large minotaurs. His smile had a bit of a treacherous feel to it. I can provide food for the entire tribe to eat, but I just said that I am a merchant and not a philanthropist. Do you understand what I mean? Chapter 807. Chu Tian was very clear on how hard it was to have a city in the Forest of Chaos. First, a forest city had to be built on a special transportation hub with abundant spiritual energy. Without enough resources, no matter how luxurious the city was, it wouldn't have any value and it would be hard to attract people to move in. Next, the owner of the city had to be strong enough because without enough strength to defend the city, who would dare rely on you in this chaotic place? Each forest city lord was a peak power that could ignore the dark forest laws. These forest cities were strategic, resource, and survival bases that the giants had to fight over. Most of the residents of the forest cities lived in their own clans, like the Elven City, the Spirit Beast City, the Giant City, or the Sea Race City. These races had a large population, therefore 80% of the residents in their cities were their own clans. The Dragon Lord was a special existence. The dragon race was a rare race after all, so they did not have a large population. However, the giant dragons had shocking wealth and incomparable strength, so they gathered large amounts of followers, so they would not lose to the large powers. What did Chu Tian have? This kind of small foreign power did not have a foundation in the Forest of Chaos. He did not have his own country or clansmen, nor did he have the strength and deterrence of the giant dragons. Even if he occupied a city, it would be useless. This was not a hot potato. This was a ticking time bomb that could blow him up at any time. That's right. In this battle against the Marauders, Miracle Commerce's strength had been displayed, allowing Chu Tian to be looked at by many large powers. The heavens' punishment had caused an earth-shattering explosion in the forest, causing many giants to be filled with fear and vigilance, but that was all. They did not attack Oldman's small town because they looked down on Oldman's small town. In the end, benefits came first in a war, so the giants did not need to cause unnecessary trouble and losses for a city on the edge of the forest. If Miracle Commerce openly occupied a city, the situation would be completely different. A race that lacked influence, foundation, and strength, it was impossible for them to have a city like this. The special thing about the current situation was that Green City still belonged to the Eternal Forest in name. The Eternal Forest was the core of the elves' influence and where the Elven Imperial City was. The elves had lived in the Forest of Chaos for tens of thousands of years, so the Eternal Forest's name was very useful. No matter who wanted to attack this city, they would be declaring war on the Eternal Forest. Like this, the large powers would be able to avoid direct military conflicts and Chu Tian would be under a large amount of pressure. He just needed to be on guard against all kinds of dirty tricks. However, Chu Tian also knew the Elven King's predicament. Green City's location was too special. The Elven Council was worried that the city would be controlled by the elves and it would drag the peace-loving elves into a war they didn't want to see the most, so they would try to persuade the Elven King to give up this city. So what if the Elven King was not willing to give up this city? If the Council did not send troops, the Eternal Forest would not be able to send troops to defend it. A city without a name could not last long. When the Eternal Forest did not come to Green City for a long time, the others didn't need to guess what the elves' attitude was. It was only a matter of time before the city was taken. Now the Elven King decided to take a gamble. On one hand, he emphasized that Green City was a power of the Eternal Forest, making those people afraid of Green City not dare to make a move. On the other hand, he no longer wanted to control it and gave this chance to Chu Tian and his daughter Vivian. This was a chance. But it was a very dangerous chance. Green City's current situation was like walking on a tightrope, very dangerous. After studying the map sent by Ulysses, Miracle Commerce came to the conclusion that this city was not bad, rather it was too good. It was located in the core area of the Forest of Chaos and this was the battlefield of the Forest of Chaos powers. The Dragon's Ridge, the eternal forest, the Titan mountain range, and the savage highlands. These were the most symbolic powers of the Forest of Chaos. Any one of them was enough to crush Miracle Commerce into powder. Green City just happened to be where these powers converged. Other than these giants that were comparable to warring kingdoms, there were also many other strong forest powers. It had to be known that those that could establish themselves in the depths of the Forest of Chaos were at least not inferior to a large kingdom. The Forest of Chaos was one of the oldest forests on the continent, so there were all kinds of fierce beasts that could bring a destructive disaster. There were some ancient secret realms and unknown geological environments, which were very dangerous. These were all things that needed to be considered. Miracle Commerce only had the support of a small southern summer country, and they did not have the home field advantage at all. With Miracle Commerce's current strength, they could only be safe, but they did not have the ability to compete with the other large powers or mine the depths of the Forest of Chaos. If they overestimated themselves and carelessly entered, there would not be a good result. There was not much time left. Chu Tian needed to quickly make a decision. This choice was a bit difficult. The Miracle Commerce people all knit their brows. Meng Qinggu did not approve of taking risks. No one was clearer than her on the current situation. Miracle Commerce's strength had already been overestimated. Miracle Commerce could not use the heavens' punishment to deal with the marauders this time. As for the berserkers trained by Miracle Commerce, even if they added in the Southern State Training Camp, they would not have more than 20,000 people, and they could not transfer them for now. The Oldman army had to protect the small town, so they could not easily transfer them. Chu Tian did not have an army he could use. Going into the dangerous forest alone, it would be hard for him to protect himself, so how could he control the city? Perhaps before he could even stand firm, he would be swallowed without even leaving a single bone. There were hundreds of races in the Forest of Chaos, and the powers were very complicated. Right now, the safest strategy was to properly manage the town and slowly accumulate as much resources and wealth as possible. Then, they would slowly take control of more aboriginals and towns. After that, they would use the strategy of surrounding the center and slowly infiltrate into the forest. Then, they would wait for an opportunity to seek control of a city and make it the center of the Chamber of Commerce. But thinking about it again. If they missed this chance, with the company's current development speed, they would not be able to enter the depths of the forest in 2-3 years. Even if they had enough wings in the future, would they be able to obtain a good city like this? Behind each city was the shadow of a large power. If Miracle Commerce wanted to obtain their own city, they would inevitably become enemies with these powers. Giving away a city like this was definitely a meat pie falling from the sky. As for giving up on the city and purely operating as a company? Absolutely not. If it was a complete country, perhaps it could be done, but in a place like the Forest of Chaos where strength ruled, everything had to be supported by corresponding strength. Without strength, no matter how much wealth and resources they had, they would be rootless duckweed. I accept the Elven King's gift. Chu Tian took the map without thinking too much. I asked the Elven King to be assured, this city will not fall into anyone's hands. This one will do his best to make it prosperous. Ulysses was filled with praise. Although the gift was tempting, people without enough courage would not dare accept it. Ulysses thought that Chu Tian would not dare accept it. Even if he accepted it, he would consider it for a few days, but he never thought that Chu Tian would be this straightforward, accepting it with just a bit of consideration. Such a person was either a brave and resourceful person, or a reckless person, or a combination of both. Although he didn't know if Chu Tian had the ability to sit in this position, as long as Green City did not fall into the hands of other powers, it would be beneficial to the elves. As for whether they controlled the city or not, it was not that important. In the name of the Eternal Forest, I appoint you as Green City's city lord. Ulysses gave the Elven King's token to Chu Tian. You have all the authority in Green City. The Eternal Forest will not interfere with any internal affairs. You just need to do what you want. Meng Yingying and Vivian revealed looks of joy. This was too great. They were simple-minded and didn't think this much. This Green City was a very good city. Although it was a city of the eternal forest in name, there were no elves in Green City, so there was no need for those old fogies to order them around. Miracle commerce was completely free in this city. Wasn't this what miracle commerce always wanted? Ulysses represented the eternal forest and the elven king in giving Chu Tian the position of city lord and Meng Qingguo and Vivian the position of vice city lord. There was no need to mention Chu Tian and Meng Qingguo, but Vivian becoming the vice city lord was arranged by the elven king. Vivian was an elf and the elven king's daughter. If she became Green City's vice city lord, it would give Green City an extra layer of protection because of her special status. Ulysses said to Chu Tian, Green City used to be the city of a large local power, but because of being suppressed for 100 years, Green City was obtained by the elven king through diplomatic means. However, the old power is in a very serious situation and there are many other powers eyeing it, so there is a lot of internal and external pressure. Other than that, there have been riots, famine, and plague recently. It is hard to accurately estimate the situation, so remember not to expose your identity and observe the situation first. Although he had already guessed that Green City's situation was not good, he never thought it would be this bad. This would not be a small challenge. But Chu Tian was not afraid at all. He did not have the time to slowly develop. With this kind of good opportunity in front of him, it would not match his personality if he didn't take it. As long as he found the right method. Chapter 808. The Minotaur filled with killing intent was suddenly stunned. This was the depths of the forest of chaos. It was not the territory of humans, therefore humans were rarely seen. Anyone that could come here was a very powerful character, so who would come to this place to be a food seller? Would they transport food from tens of thousands of miles away? Or would they buy and sell food in the forest? This kind of behavior was like a treasure hunter that had finally found a hidden treasure after a long time, but in the end, they had to move a stone back. This was completely different from cleaning up. The locals of the forest all knew how difficult and dangerous it was to pass through the forest of chaos. Even the locals that had lived here for generations did not dare to easily try it. Humans did not hesitate to come here and there were countless heaven and earth treasures. Even if it was leather, wood, or ore, they were all profitable businesses, so why did they have to buy food? The Minotaur stared with wide eyes as he panted and said, no matter who it is, anyone that plays with the Minotaurs will be turned into a meat patty. The Minotaur had a fierce expression, but Chu Tian had a calm expression as if he didn't see it. One day, no, give me half a day to prepare. Send a large amount of food to the Minotaur tribe and then we'll discuss the price, how about it? Although reason told the Minotaur that it was impossible for this to happen, it was definitely this human doing something. Humans were famous for being sly on the continent. But from this human's expression and demeanor, it didn't seem like he was lying. Could he really bring a large amount of food? The Minotaur tribe had over 100,000 people and the amount of food they needed was enough to feed a human city of over 2 million people. Why do we believe a human? Why don't you believe him? Even if you want to attack the Fox clan, just your several thousand people won't be enough. Why don't you go back and wait for half a day? Half a day. The Minotaur tribe wouldn't be unable to hold on for half a day and the Fox clan wouldn't be able to run in half a day. Since the human was this confident, why not wait a bit? The Minotaur did not want to fight. Unless they couldn't live on anymore. Alright, the Minotaurs will believe you this once. If you don't appear before nightfall, the Minotaurs will bathe the Fox clan in blood. When the Fox clan people heard this threat, they all revealed looks of anger. The Minotaurs did not have any reasoning, especially a group of hungry Minotaurs. Although they were angry, they did not want to fight with these fellows. After all, the Minotaurs' battle strength could not be underestimated and once they went crazy, they would be terrifying. Chu Tian nodded with a faint smile, it's a deal. The Minotaur leader waved his hand. The several thousand Minotaurs left. Dolores' enchanting face was filled with anxiety. She did not know why Chu Tian would make this kind of promise to the Minotaurs for no reason. Do you have companions nearby? No. Do you have any influence nearby? Also no. Chu Tian had come here alone. Not to mention helping the Minotaurs survive, he did not even have a single bit of rations on him. The Fox clan members were all worried. Could it be that Chu Tian was stalling for time on his own? Not only would this not solve the problem, once the Minotaurs found out that they had been tricked, with their personalities, they would explode with 10 times the rage and madness to trample over the Fox clan. The high priest tightly knit his brows. Although he was filled with worry, he could see that this human Chu Tian was not simple. Chu Tian had been appointed as Green City's city lord, so the Fox clan would be an important ally and helper. He had no reason to mess around with this matter. What was he thinking? Dolores couldn't hold back her anger. Then what did you promise the Minotaurs? Don't you know how terrifying the mad Minotaurs are? Don't be anxious, don't be anxious. Chu Tian's eyes swept over the Fox clan and he calmly said, I'm asking you, do you want to get rich? The moment these brainless words came out, all the Fox clan members were stunned. Dolores stood up and her voluptuous body moved up and down with excitement. What time is it now and you're still saying this? If it wasn't for the Lord Demonic God's sake, Dolores would have already made a move. Dolores, sit down. The high priest had her sit down. Since this Sir City Lord is filled with confidence, then he must have a reason. Let's listen to what he has to say for now. Chu Tian said with a nod, I'm not lying, I am indeed a merchant and I can become a food seller. Merchant? The Fox clan looked at each other in blank dismay. The elves hated human merchants the most because nothing good ever happened when human merchants came into contact with the elves. One of the most profitable businesses in the forest was human trafficking, and whether it was the Fox clan or the elves, they were the main prey of these human traffickers. How could this kind of human be given the city lord status by the elven king? Actually, it's not hard to deal with these tribes. Chu Tian said in a meaningful voice, I've also found that it's very easy to get rich here. Dolores asked, how are you prepared to deal with the Minotaurs? They're not easy to fool. Fool? Sorry, I'm an honest and trustworthy person. Chu Tian didn't want to explain this clearly. He took out materials from the gourd. Please move aside. Several prepared array flags were inserted into the ground. When the array flags were activated, large amounts of runes were released into the center, finally forming a source energy array that caused spatial energy fluctuations. Chu Tian then placed an energy pillar at the base of the array to provide it with energy. Open. Chu Tian gave a low roar. Although Chu Tian didn't have true spirit level strength, with the prepared array flags, he could quickly create a spatial array to open the space warehouse. He had already used the communication device to contact the young miss, so when Chu Tian opened the space warehouse, the 1,000 cubic meters of space was filled with over 100,000 cans. These cans were not traveling cans, but rather storage cans. The former were small cans that adventurers, mercenaries, and adventurers carried with them, while the latter were large cans that were half a person tall, used to store food. Over 100,000 large cans, with an average weight of around 50 pounds, poured out of the space warehouse, instantly forming a small mountain in front of the Fox clan. The Fox clansmen were all stunned. No one could understand what Chu Tian had done. It was like he was performing magic, creating all these things out of thin air. This was even more mysterious than their summoning techniques. Chu Tian opened the lid of a large can and threw it in front of the Fox clansmen from several dozen meters away. Take a look for yourselves. Dolores smelled an enticing food fragrance. Could it really be food? The Fox clansmen immediately came over in curiosity. This can was filled with cooked meat, with each piece weighing over 10 pounds. It was fat and fresh, releasing an enticing smell, as if it was still steaming. It was like it had just come out of the pot. Dolores's eyes opened wide as she looked at the humans with a face filled with amazement. Her eyes were not like she was looking at a person, but rather like she was looking at a monster, or perhaps she was looking at a god. She was filled with shock and joy as countless complex emotions gathered in her heart, finally condensing into a single question. How did you do it? That's not the main point. Chu Tian asked with a smile, I'll ask you again, do you want to get rich? In the evening, the dark red sunset covered the entire forest. The Minotaur tribe in the valley was covered in a gloomy atmosphere. Countless Minotaurs were weakly digging at the grass and tree roots. These giant fellows that even dared to attack ogres were now in a sickly and weak state. "Chief, it's almost dark." "Of course I know." The Minotaur chief was a large fellow that was close to 4 meters tall, with a body that seemed like it was made of black steel. His 2 large nostrils would release a white mist each time he breathed, and his 2 eyes were even bigger than bells with flames of anger dancing in them. There were 2 curved blade-like horns on his head that released a cold glow. "It seems like that human played us." "That's right, the human is on the same side as the Fox clan. We'll kill our way over now and skin those foxes. We'll chop up their bones and make soup to drink, letting them know the consequences of deceiving the Minotaurs." A few of the Minotaur leaders with fiery tempers were already roaring in anger. Killing the foxes was not important, the most important thing was to steal. They needed food, otherwise in a single night, over 1,000 clansmen would starve to death. If this famine continued for 3-5 days, at least 10,000 clansmen would starve to death. At that time, the tribe would have to face the danger of disbanding. The Minotaur chief stood up. Although he didn't say anything, he was already lifting the giant axe forged from heavy iron. His killing intent was the best explanation. "Chief, those foxes are here." When the Minotaur chief was prepared to lead his clansmen out, a Minotaur's voice suddenly came from outside. This made all the Minotaurs' expressions change. What? Could they really be here? In front of the Minotaur Valley, Dolores and Chu Tian were fighting side by side. Around 500 Fox clan youths had arrived. "Out of the way, out of the way." The Minotaur chief pushed aside a few people blocking his way. When he was about to loudly ask, his 2 bull eyes suddenly popped out. This was because the Fox clan had brought a large group of giant lizards and each giant lizard was carrying a large tin can. The Fox clan members were busy moving the tin cans down. "This is..." The Minotaurs had surprised expressions. These tin cans were made from the southern summer country's factory lathes. No one in the forest would waste time making these things to store food. There are 10,000 cans of food here, around 500,000 pounds. They are all processed and there are several secret spices and seasonings that are 100 times more delicious than your crude food. I swear that as long as you eat our company's food, you won't be able to eat anything else in the future. Everyone could clearly hear that the Minotaur's breathing had become heavier. "That's right, I've heard that the Minotaurs love strong wine, so I've prepared 1,000 barrels of good wine. Each barrel is made from high-quality materials and even in a human society that pursues a high quality of life, this is considered a pretty good wine." The Minotaur's eyes turned red and their large Adam's apples moved a few times, but they could not say anything. Chu Tian looked at these Minotaurs. "I wonder if everyone is satisfied." The Minotaur chief couldn't hold it in anymore. "Quickly give it to me." The Minotaurs almost lost their reasoning and they wanted to steal it. "I have to remind you, don't try to steal our food. This is just the first batch and I have plenty of good wine and meat. You can have as much as you want, but if you dare try to steal it, then I'm sorry, I won't do any business with the Minotaurs in the future." Chu Tian said this and then added, "I think that at this time, as long as we provide food, there will be many tribes that are interested in attacking the Minotaur Valley." The Minotaur chief's expression fell. What do you want?" "I don't know either." Chu Tian revealed a cunning smile. "I'll have to see what you have first." Chapter 809. Ulysses stood up and looked at Chu Tian before looking at Vivian. A complicated look flashed in his eyes. "The Elven King's matter has been completed, I hope that everything goes smoothly for you." "I'll be leaving now." Vivian quickly asked, "Aren't you going to stay in Oldman's small town for a few more days? There must be many things you can't think of here, perhaps it can move the people in the council." Ulysses slightly shook his head. "Us elves are not a race that easily accepts new things, otherwise we wouldn't have been like this for tens of thousands of years. I still have things to do in the eternal forest, so I won't stay. Ulysses still left. Everyone felt this was a bit strange. This kind of words coming from the mouth of an elf made people feel strange. Chu Tian spread out the map Ulysses left on the table. Meng Yingying came over to take a look and couldn't help letting out a surprised cry. Wah, this map is too clear. That's right, this was the most complete and detailed map of the Forest of Chaos so far. Only the elves that had lived in the Forest of Chaos for tens of thousands of years could draw this kind of map. Each special area, each special terrain, each lake, each mountain range, and each city, they were all clearly drawn. The elves did not have any copying technology. The entire map was drawn by hand. Every line and every detail was drawn perfectly and precisely. Moreover, drawing such a large map definitely required a lot of effort. This map could be called a work of art with astonishing value, not to mention that the value of the map itself was definitely not low. Take a photo and make a few more copies. Chu Tian knew the value of this map, so he prepared to have Meng Yingying make a few more copies. However, his eyes suddenly froze as he looked at the map with a bit of surprise. What's wrong? Everyone felt that Chu Tian's eyes were a bit strange. Meng Yingying immediately asked, "Is there something strange about this map?" Chu Tian did not reply, he just carefully observed it. This terrain was a bit familiar. He recalled the map of the continent in his mind and finally overlapped it with this area. In the end, Chu Tian was surprised to find that there were at least 7-8 layers that were similar. More than 30,000 years later, the forest here was basically developed, and a rich and populous country was established here. Chu Tian's impression of this was a republic country with many different races, but this country could be ranked in the top 10 richest countries on the continent. The reason why this country was so rich was because they found a hidden treasure left behind from the great ancient era in this area. That was a true hidden treasure. This was different from any other place Chu Tian had been to before. This hidden treasure was even qualified to be recorded in history. It was left behind from the great ancient era and there was a very rare time and space gap in the hidden treasure. As for this kind of memory, Chu Tian only paid a little attention to it and did not deliberately remember it, so he did not know the exact coordinates of the hidden treasure. However, he was certain that this place was in a certain area of the Forest of Chaos. What are you thinking about? Chu Tian came back to his senses and quickly waved his hand. Although he knew that there was a hidden treasure, was it easy to find it? There were quite a few hidden treasures on the continent, but opening a hidden treasure required an opportunity. There were some hidden treasures that were clearly under one's feet, but they couldn't touch it until they died of old age. The great ancient hidden treasure could contain a secret from the demon god era. This was a large attraction to Chu Tian, but he did not dare have too much hope. He could only pay attention to it in the future. If he could find some clues, then it wouldn't be a bad idea to investigate it. Chu Tian waved his hand, "It's nothing, we should think about how to obtain Green City. This is something we need to solve." This was a very risky decision, but Meng Qinggu did not complain. She was a good assistant and a smart woman. She knew that her responsibility was to help Chu Tian with all her strength and not to question him. Great risk, great reward. This risk was completely worth it. But she had to properly plan it out. Meng Qinggu studied the map again and again, studying Ulysses' information again and again. Meng Qinggu immediately made several decisions. First, she would increase the amount of food they had. Miracle commerce would increase the price of demon beast meat by 20%, so they could buy more demon beast meat from the locals. This food would be sent to the southern summer country to be processed into canned food or other food. Oldman's small town did not lack food. From the information, the locals near Green City were suffering from a famine. If there was a need, there was an opportunity, so stocking up on food wasn't wrong. Second, she would increase the weapon reserves and upgrade the weapons. The silver crystal oil near Oldman's small town had already been mined. This kind of silver crystal oil with higher energy was enough to make stronger source energy weapons. Not only could they arm their own troops, if they sold it in a reasonable way, it would push the situation in a favorable direction. For example, if there were two locals that were potential enemies, what would Miracle Commerce do if they wanted to quickly eliminate them? Actually, it was very simple. They would first use a method to provoke the two locals to fight, and then they would sell the weaker side weapons and equipment, making their fight more intense. Finally, both sides would become weaker and weaker. Not only would they reduce the number of potential enemies, they would also be able to fill their pockets. Chu Tian had said before that the most profitable business in this world was weapons and energy. Meng Qinggu had always remembered this in her heart. The source energy weapons had always been self-produced, but now that the weapons in stock were becoming higher and higher, they had the ability to sell them. This would become an important diplomatic and defensive trump card for Miracle Commerce. Third, she would make the initial preparations and create a basic communication network. Green City was very chaotic and there were many uncertainties, so the information the elves sent was too one-sided. The Oldman small town's army could not leave and the southern summer country's reinforcements could not come in a short period of time. The most suitable method now was to first send a small team that would not attract attention. They would first gather information and integrate into the situation before thinking of a way to obtain Green City. Meng Qinggu sent out a communication airship. This was the cheapest and fastest airship, and the southern summer country had already made over 10 of them. Each communication airship could cover over 10,000 miles, and these airships were enough to form a communication network deep into the forest. Meng Qinggu sent out the newest Heaven's Eye airship. These two airships could allow Miracle Commerce to grasp information, which was very useful in this chaotic and closed-off forest. In these few days, Chu Tian did not do anything at all. He only refined large amounts of pills and gave everyone a cultivation plan, as well as leaving large amounts of spiritual knowledge for the flower fairies to study. Just one person was enough for this trip. Although Chu Tian had not reached the true spirit realm, he already had the ability to protect himself. Rather than wasting manpower, it was better to increase everyone's cultivation and prepare for Miracle Commerce's entry into Green City. After a few days, over 100 miles away from Oldman small town, a Heaven's Net airship was parked in an open space. The entire airship was covered in reflective mirrors and the surrounding environment was reflected on it. The clean and forward-looking design made it seem like it was filled with technology. Meng Yingying asked, "How long will you be gone for this time?" "It should be around 10 days to half a month." Chu Tian was not sure about this matter. "Do you remember the task I gave you?" Meng Yingying nodded and said, "Relax, I will properly cultivate and help the flower fairies." Chu Tian was traveling alone. Although Meng Yingying was a bit worried, she was not as nervous as before. After all, she had confidence in Chu Tian and the company had already set up a communication network, so they could contact each other at any time. If there was a need, they could even use the image transferring mirror to communicate. "There's no time to lose, I'm leaving now." This Heaven's Net airship was what Meng Qinggu wanted, so she could give Chu Tian a ride on the way. After all, the forest environment was too dangerous. If they directly passed through the forest, they wouldn't even be able to reach their destination in 10 days to half a month. Even riding a flying demon beast was not safe. The miracle airship was different. This thing could fly at an altitude of 30,000–40,000 meters. The chances of meeting demon beasts at this altitude were very small and the airship was very secretive, so there was no need to worry. Chu Tian only brought the storage gourd, a sword, and a fox, that was all. This was already enough. This gourd was an innate treasure, a living thing that could absorb spiritual energy to grow. Ever since Chu Tian had obtained this gourd in the central state tower, he had been slowly cultivating it. As the gourd grew, the storage space inside became larger and larger, now reaching 50 cubic meters. It was not common to have such a large storage space on one's body. Chu Tian could store enough materials to open the space warehouse several dozen times. If he really needed something, he could use the space warehouse to get it from the small town. It was fast and convenient. Goodbye. Chu Tian waved his hand to say goodbye to Yingying. The airship slowly started and it slowly rose into the sky with a gust of wind. When he saw the forest under his feet becoming larger and larger, Chu Tian couldn't help feeling a bit emotional. This thing was something Chu Tian had made on a whim. He never thought it would have this many uses, but with the young miss and the Yun sect's constant research, this flying tool that Chu Tian had made on a whim was being given more and more uses. This made Chu Tian very satisfied. He had trained the Yun sect, trained the young miss, and trained all these helpers. Now he was gradually getting some returns. Chu Tian was certain that even if he disappeared now, Miracle Commerce could rely on their current technology and the ability to innovate on this foundation. They would still be a company that could change the entire continent. A person's wisdom was limited in the end. But Miracle Commerce's current level was far from enough. Right now they were just an organization that could make money, gather resources, and rope in other powers. They were still far from the level Chu Tian wanted to reach, so the road ahead was still very long. Chapter 8:10. Night, in the Minotaur Valley. Several tens of thousands of minotaurs were celebrating, filling the valley with the fragrance of meat and wine. Chu Tian was sitting in the center of the valley with the Fox clan around a bonfire. Dolores was sitting on the side, her silver-white hair flowing down as she held a piece of roasted meat in her hands, eating it in large bites. "You really are something." Dolores was very dissatisfied looking at the Minotaur's happy appearances, as if these bulls being happy was a big bad thing for her. Therefore, she complained to Chu Tian beside her, "It's fine if you say you're sending food, but these stupid bulls can eat anything. They can even digest rotten wolf meat in their stomachs. Even the toughest blade grass is nothing. You just have to send this good food, it's too good for these fellows." After saying this, she fiercely ate a few more bites. The forest natives ate raw meat and their food conditions were far behind. Natives were natives in the end, they couldn't compare to civilized humans. Even in human society, Miracle Commerce's source energy cooking was the best of the best. Even for the elves who pursued a high quality of life, Vivian fell in love with this food the first time she tasted it. The elves also had very high cooking skills, they could combine demon beast meat and herbs to create delicacies. Only the elves' cooking process was as complicated as refining pills, how could they be like Miracle Commerce's source energy arrays? After Meng Yingying invented the canned food, Miracle Commerce had built several factories. These canned food factories required large amounts of source energy chefs to manually operate them, but now that the source energy arrays could be supplied with energy, they didn't need to be manually operated. Although there were no source energy chefs to control the fire and the taste of the source energy foods was not as good, it was only relatively speaking. Chu Tian did not care about the fox girl's complaints. This was because he had just brought Dolores and they had ruthlessly slaughtered the minotaurs. Although because of the long-term famine, the minotaurs had already exchanged the precious herbs and rare materials they had stored, they still had quite a few treasures. Especially the beast cores, demon crystals, leather, and etc. They were all accumulated by the minotaurs over many years. These things were not worth much here. But as long as they could be sent to the southern summer country, they would be very valuable. The level 3 demon beast leather was enough to make high-quality leather armors and the beast cores and demon crystals could be used in large amounts in the laboratory. Other than that, there were also herbs, metals, and other materials. He roughly calculated it. The source energy cans were worth around 300 low-grade source stones, which was around 300 million in southern summer gold coins. This was because the ingredients were bought in the forest over the past month and were mostly level 2 ingredients, so the cost was relatively high. After all, with the Minotaur's strength, level 1 source energy food would not be enough to satisfy them. Chu Tian had basically emptied the Minotaurs. The total value of these things was around 3,000 low-grade source stones, which was around 3 billion in southern summer crystal coins. Chu Tian did not do anything at all. Miracle Commerce and Oldman's small town were buying demon beast meat at a high price. The kingdom's mercenaries, hunters, and locals were naturally grateful to miracle commerce. After all, even the demon beast meat could be sold for a good price, which was a large amount of income for them. The purchased food was sent to the southern summer countries' factories to be processed before being sold to the famine areas, instantly earning 10 times the profit. Moreover, the locals were also grateful to him. Chu Tian was simply an angel that descended from the heavens, saving their tribe from disaster. This kind of business that could earn them money and also earn gratitude was rarely seen. Now that the fox girl Dolores had thrown away her prejudice against Chu Tian, she already admired this human a little. Although Chu Tian did not say how to transport the food, Dolores did not ask him, so she went to find the little fox. How could the little fox keep this secret? The Fox clan had already treated it as an ancestor and worshipped it in the temple, making this fellow very proud. Dolores had only given it a little benefit and it immediately told Dolores about the space warehouse. It was no exaggeration to say that this space transportation technology was comparable to a miracle. Especially in times of famine for many tribes, Chu Tian could definitely use this method to earn a large amount of money. Dolores did not say another word as she led her clansmen to fight Chu Tian. At this time, the Minotaur chief Arnold was already drunk. He had never felt this happy before. That human merchant had not only given the Minotaurs a pleasant surprise and temporarily alleviated the famine, he had also allowed them to enjoy delicious food that they would never be able to enjoy in their entire lives. The wine was top-quality wine. The meat was top-quality meat. Arnold felt a wave of sorrow. He felt like he had lived these past few decades in vain. He didn't even know what it meant to enjoy life. If he knew that the human world was this beautiful, he wouldn't have become a chief and would have left the forest to enjoy himself in a human country. This Minotaur in the third true spirit layer, no matter if he went to a large or small country, he would be respected. It was already too late to regret it now. What Arnold was truly surprised about was that the things the human merchant took were things the Minotaurs couldn't use. For example, demon beast essence bones, blood essence, beast cores, demon crystals, and leather. These things couldn't be eaten and weren't worth much in the forest, so the Minotaurs were too lazy to bring them back. He never thought that they could be used to save their tribe at this time. If they knew this earlier, they would have stored more. Arnold's drunkenness suddenly sobered up a bit. That's right. The Minotaurs were not rich to begin with and most of their stores had been traded. Although they had traded for several 100,000 jin of food, how long could this last the tribe? It was unknown how long this famine would last. If the tribe faced a food crisis, how would they survive it? Arnold's brows without eyebrows knit together. Although the Minotaurs weren't smart, it wasn't hard to foresee this obvious problem. Arnold carefully considered it before finally finding Chu Tian and saying, "Respected Mr. Chu Tian, you've solved a large problem for the Minotaurs. I thank you on behalf of the Minotaurs." Chu Tian waved his hand in an uncaring manner. "Don't say it like this, I am a merchant. This is a fair trade, you don't owe me anything." Arnold's large black face was a bit awkward. The quality of the food this time is very good. I think it's enough to last the Minotaurs for around 5 days, but after 5 days. Chu Tian pretended not to understand Arnold's words. "Our company has plenty of food. As long as the price is good, we can supply as much as we want." But Arnold released 2 streams of white gas from his nose as he anxiously said, "Our tribe's precious treasures and elixirs have been exchanged for food in Green City half a month ago. Most of the worthless leather and ores have been used to exchange for this batch of food. Our tribe really can't take out any more. I think we can owe it first. As long as the tribe can guarantee a month's supply, the Minotaurs can guarantee double the payment in half a year." Chu Tian shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "Chief Arnold should know that I won't be able to earn any money from this business. Think about it, how hard is it to send this large amount of food into the forest? If I didn't want to make friends with the Minotaurs, I wouldn't do this kind of losing business. If the Minotaurs want to owe it, I'm afraid it's a bit unreasonable. The company has to consider costs and risks. I'm a merchant, so I'm very sorry." The Minotaurs were anxious hearing this. They did not know how long this famine would last. If this human merchant lost confidence in the Minotaurs, it would be a heavy blow to the Minotaurs. It was as he said, wanting to send this much food into the depths of the forest, just thinking about it was an incredible matter. Not to mention the fact that Chu Tian didn't have any precious herbs or rare resources, just some common materials. This kind of high-quality food was sold for such a low price, perhaps it was even cheaper than in Green City. It seemed like there was nothing to earn from this. What should he do? Steal it? No. Arnold did not even know the human merchant's background, not to mention the fact that the human caravans that came here to do business were not simple. Chu Tian had warned the Minotaurs that if they did anything out of line, the humans could use the food to support the surrounding tribes and have them attack the Minotaurs. The Minotaurs would not be able to bear the consequences. We can consider any conditions. As long as it can help our clansmen get through this crisis, you can raise any conditions. Really? Arnold sincerely nodded. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. Actually, I have a special identity, but I can't tell you right now. However, you should understand that you won't suffer a loss if you follow me. The Minotaurs knit their brows without eyebrows again. What did he mean? Could it be he wanted the Minotaurs to be loyal to him? This was also impossible. He was just a human and the Minotaurs would not bend their knees for food. Chief Arnold, I'll allow the Minotaurs to take a part of the debt. Chu Tian said this and then suddenly squatted down. As for the other part, we can use employment to pay it back. Employment? I'm not a local after all, so it's a hindrance to do things here. If I have the help of the Minotaur's elite soldiers, there will be much less resistance when I start my business. Chu Tian said this and pointed at the large cans of food on the side. Each Minotaur elite soldier will get 2 cans of food a day. What do you think? A single can of food was several dozen pounds, enough for a Minotaur to eat for several days. One Minotaur was paid 2 cans of food. This was not low in a time of famine. A single Minotaur was enough to feed the entire family. Only Arnold was still worried. He did not know this human's background and if he sent the Minotaurs to their deaths, he would not be able to explain it to his clansmen. You don't need to worry. Chu Tian then added, if the Minotaurs are heavily injured during the employment period, we will treat their injuries and compensate them with 10 cans of food, allowing them to peacefully recover. If the Minotaurs die during the employment period, Miracle Commerce will compensate with 100 cans of food. The Minotaur's breathing became heavy. This was a temptation that was hard to resist. Chief Arnold thought about it for a long time before saying in a probing voice, the Minotaurs are the bravest warriors in the forest, we need at least 4 cans of food a day. Chu Tian thought about it and didn't bargain, so he agreed. 5 cans of food would give them several hundred pounds of meat. If they bought a random bull, they would be able to get close to a ton of meat. What did this bit of food count for? Miracle Commerce did not lack resources, but what they lacked the most was allies, especially allies in Green City. Using food to maintain allies was a pretty good method. No problem. Chu Tian obtained the support of another tribe other than the Fox clan. Not only would these Minotaurs support Chu Tian could even hire the Minotaurs to charge into battle. Therefore, as long as there was a need, Chu Tian could hire several thousand Minotaurs to fight for him. With the help of this power and the Fox clan, Chu Tian was much more confident. But this was not enough. Chu Tian had not fully displayed his advantages, he still needed the support of the locals. Chapter 8:11. Chu Tian sat on the airship, maintaining a stable speed at 40,000 meters in the air. The entire cruising speed was very calm, not shaking at all in the past 2 days. He either watched the scenery and ate to pass the time, or he used the image-transferring mirror to talk to Yingying and the young miss to pass the time. The airship's design was very perfect. There was only one thing he was not satisfied with. It was too slow. Of course, the speed was relative. It had to be known that the place the airship passed in 2 days, it would take at least 10 days for a fast horse to travel in a straight line. The forest of chaos terrain was very complex and it was not flat. There were all sorts of hidden dangers and normal horses and demon beasts like leopards would find it hard to pass through. Even a level 2 flying mount would need at least a week to travel this far. Compared to this, could the airship still be called slow? Not to mention that the airship had an advantage that no mount could compare to, which was its incomparable safety. This was because the airship's safe cruising altitude was around 30–40,000 meters, the air here was very thin compared to the ground. Even if those demon beasts that relied on their wings used 10 times their strength, they still wouldn't be able to fly at half their normal speed, or they might not even be able to fly at all. But for the airships, because the air density was reduced, the resistance and turbulence were reduced, allowing them to move faster and more stably. Only giant dragons and flood dragons could rely on yuan qi or some other special power to soar at such a high altitude. However, these legendary creatures were few in number across the entire continent. In this tens of thousands of kilometers of air, the chances of encountering one were so minuscule that it was almost negligible. Chairman, we're almost there. This is already the airspace around Green City. Because we don't understand the terrain below, we can't land for safety reasons, so we can only trouble the chairman to land. The Griffin Knights in charge of the airship opened a cabin door for Chu Tian. This was the stable for the griffins and the cabin door was right in front of him. When he looked through the transparent crystal glass, he could see that the entire sky was blue and white. This was different from the blue sky on the ground. It was because this plane was a round or oval space and time domain. From a creator's point of view, it was just a large bubble of independent time and space energy, but there was a large amount of matter inside this bubble. The heavy and turbid matter formed a vast continent at the bottom and the light and vast energy gathered at the top to form the sun, air, and etc. Since ancient times, no one could measure the thickness of the earth and of course no one could accurately measure the height of the sky because the concept of space and time surpassed the fourth dimension. This was an abstract concept for living beings that lived in a three-dimensional environment. People could not perceive the entire space and time structure, just like how people in paintings could not perceive the three-dimensional world. Light, thunder, these positive energies all gathered at the top of the sky. Darkness, death, these negative energies settled under the earth. The normal elements of wind, fire, water, and earth filled the entire space. This was the basic model of the world that Chu Tian understood. This world was incomparably complex and vast, but it was ruled by the same law in the end. There's no need for a mount. I'll directly go down. Chu Tian refused to ride on the griffin. He slapped open one of the external cabin doors, looked down at the vast land beneath his feet, and directly leapt down. Several griffin riders cried out in shock, but it was already too late to stop him. Chu Tian spread his limbs and fell to the ground like a meteor. A mount was unnecessary. He hit the clouds at an extremely fast speed and when the clouds passed by him, it was like smooth silk brushing against his body. The entire earth continued to expand in his vision. Almost there. Chu Tian took out a talisman. He slapped it on his body and his weight seemed to decrease. He fell to the ground like a leaf, finally falling into an incomparably lush forest. He quickly smashed through a large amount of branches before finally landing on the ground. Although he had used the feather fall talisman to reduce his weight, falling from such a high altitude still created a large hole in the ground like a cannonball. He had safely landed. Chu Tian tidied up his clothes and walked out of the hole. Over 80% of the forest of chaos was covered in forest, but the forest growing here was different from the outside. There was a large gap between the trees and the trees were tall and straight. The tree trunks were thick and solid, being as hard as steel. This place was filled with spiritual energy and even the most ordinary plants would undergo quite a bit of change. Chu Tian estimated the direction. This place was around the northwest of Green City, at least 200 kilometers away. However, Chu Tian did not care about this because he did not plan on entering Green City. The main goal of this trip was to gather information. When Chu Tian was prepared to leave, the little fox came out and called out, "Zhi, Zhi." Chu Tian immediately stopped. The little fox's perception was more sensitive than his, so it could sense danger before Chu Tian. Almost at the same time, there was a sense of danger that enveloped him. Actually, with Chu Tian's strength, normal level 1 and 2 demon beasts or awakened soul cultivators could not pose a threat to him. So, anything that could make him feel this sense of danger, it must be a very strong existence. Pulling out his sword, turning around. A sword glow. Pa! Like a whip, the sword chi lashed at the body of the sneak attacker who was rushing over. This violent strength instantly tore apart several trees, but the creature that was sneak attacking him only let out a roar and retreated. It flipped in the air and nimbly escaped. What is this? Chu Tian did not even see the other side's appearance, so it could be imagined how fast this thing was. The little fox waved its tail and made a head-scratching action, looking a bit comical. Chu Tian asked in a doubtful voice, "Monkey?" The little fox nodded. This monkey that could block Chu Tian's sword, perhaps it was not a simple monkey. The little fox took out its eyeball and used it to scan its surroundings. The little fox's eyes lit up and it immediately called out to Chu Tian to run. Too late. Sharp and angry howls rang out from all directions. Chu Tian's brows jumped up. Did he just fall into a monkey's nest? Countless white silhouettes shot out. These monkeys moved at a speed not inferior to the speed of sound. Thus, when the monkeys' cries rang in their ears, several agile and vigorous afterimages disappeared and flashed several times, and they had already directly arrived in front of them. A milky white claw glow flew through the air. Chu Tian quickly used his sword to block in front of him. Those 4-5 claw glows released a strong energy that forced Chu Tian back several steps, but Chu Tian's reaction was very fast. He immediately chased after it with a backhand slash. The Netherworld sword released a sword chi that was even stronger than before. The monkey was sent flying into a tree by the sword chi and it instantly shattered the tree. The monkey was covered in blood and its fur was ignited by the Netherworld flame, but it did not immediately die. It rolled around on the ground as it tried to extinguish the Netherworld flame on its body. Chu Tian's sword chi could easily tear apart iron. Not only was this kind of monkey not split into two after suffering a head-on attack, it was actually able to jump around and struggle on the ground. Such a strong defense and the size of the rice grains was very surprising. These monkeys could reach the speed of sound, but they didn't make a single sound as they moved. It was like they had practiced a very high-level movement technique and the claw glows they released were a kind of martial skill. It was fine if there were only 1 or 2 of these powerful monkeys. However, once there were too many of them, even a high-level true spirit realm expert wouldn't be able to escape. Now that the forest was filled with shadows, there were at least several dozen of them surrounding them. It was probably because Chu Tian's slash had deterred these monkeys, so they just stood in the nearby forest baring their teeth and did not approach. This also gave Chu Tian a chance to see the true faces of these monkeys. The monkeys were ash gray and were around a meter tall. Although they weren't big, they were very agile and their bodies were covered in a white glow. Several of the monkeys jointly spat out a cloud of white essence chi. This cloud of essence chi was like a cloud that enveloped the burning monkey's body. The netherworld fire that was burning more and more fiercely was immediately extinguished. After a while, the monkey stood up again. Its skin was completely burnt and it looked a bit funny. However, it was still showing its teeth and seemed very spirited. Chu Tian was a bit shocked seeing this. They could actually heal each other. Chu Tian had never seen this kind of demon beast before, but from the strength they displayed, even if these monkeys weren't in the true spirit realm, they were at least in the 8-9th awakened soul layer. They also had extraordinary speed and iron bones. Adding in the fact that they were demon beasts that lived in groups, it was much harder to deal with them. They really were worthy of being in the depths of the forest of chaos. This random group of monkeys was already this hard to deal with. If they met a super fierce beast, Chu Tian's life would end here. There was no other way. He could only waste a bit of energy. The demon god Sword Source Spirit soared into the sky. Chu Tian gave a low roar as flames surrounded his body, instantly entering the flame demon transformation state. Chu Tian was only in the peak 9th awakened soul layer, but his cultivation instantly rose to the level of a true spirit cultivator. These monkeys were very fast, but with the flame demon transformation and the netherworld sword art, Chu Tian was not afraid at all. These spirit monkeys could clearly smell danger. They all tensed up as they roared out while baring their teeth. It seemed like they wanted to go all out against Chu Tian. Stop! A voice came from the depths of the forest. When these monkeys heard this voice, they all withdrew their killing intent and retreated. Chu Tian was slightly taken aback when he saw this. Could it be that this wasn't a magical beast lair and these monkeys were raised by someone? Chapter 8:12. Chu Tian and Arnold discussed the details of their cooperation. The main things were the amount of food, the time limit for the Minotaurs to repay the loan, and the interest. All the Minotaurs in the Minotaur Valley were very grateful to Chu Tian. This human was simply a savior from the heavens. The most important thing was the food that this human brought was too good. It was like what Chu Tian said before. After eating Miracle Commerce's food, the Minotaurs couldn't eat anything else. Chu Tian announced that the Fox clan would become Miracle Commerce's local representative. For things like sending food to the Minotaur Valley, they would all be taken care of by the Fox clan. Chu Tian would not easily appear again. The Minotaur's battle strength does not lose to the ogres. You can obtain the support of the Minotaurs. This is indeed beneficial for you in the future. Dolores's bright eyes flashed with praise and a trace of satisfaction at the same time. The Fox people had endured these stupid bulls for a long time, and now that the stupid bulls had to listen to the Fox clan, she felt her heart fill with joy. But the Minotaurs in the Minotaur Valley are only working with you because of the threat of famine. It doesn't mean they are willing to sell their lives for you. As long as the famine situation is alleviated, I think your control over them will quickly decrease. Dolores then said, your current actions are a risky investment. Who knows if the Minotaurs will repay the resources? Unless you become the city lord and make this debt real, all your efforts will be wasted. Chu Tian nodded. Then what do you think I should do? We can secretly hunt the Minotaurs in the Minotaur Valley, or we can use Sir Demonic God's abilities to take the demon beasts away, making the Minotaurs eat less and less food. This way, we can maintain our dependence on Miracle Commerce. But Dolores's charming voice changed. Doing this will be very strenuous. If we're discovered, there will be a gap and it will backfire. Moreover, with just a single Minotaur tribe, I'm afraid it won't be of much help to you. This beautiful fox girl could already stand in Chu Tian's point of view. Chu Tian was very satisfied with this. The Fox clan had clearly tied their benefits to Miracle Commerce. A single Minotaur tribe is far from enough, so I need the support of more tribes. Chu Tian calmly said, if I have 10-20 tribes supporting me, wouldn't it be much easier to sit in the city lord's position? Dolores's eyes flashed with a look of surprise. If you can obtain the support of this many tribes, naturally it won't be a problem. The problem is, how do you do it? This is definitely not an easy matter. It's simple, a good move can be used twice. Chu Tian was now inspired by the Minotaur tribe. Survival was the most important rule for the forest locals. Now that there was a large-scale famine near Green City, several tribes were struggling like the Minotaur Valley. Even if the other tribes were in a better situation, they would still be struggling. Controlling the food in this period would mean controlling the locals. Chu Tian did not recommend risky investments. As long as he obtained the support of the locals, even if it was temporary support, he would be able to sit in the city lord's position. At that time, the locals would have no choice but to submit and the debt would be settled. I'll need your help with this matter. With our current relationship, Sir City Lord's matter is our matter. To be able to help Sir City Lord, of course it is our honor. Dolores smiled beautifully. When her plump body trembled, Chu Tian couldn't help but take another look. However, Dolores didn't care at all. Instead, she threw him a coquettish look and said, "It's just that the scale of our demonic saint church is very small. Everyone's life is very happy." That voice seemed like it could drip water. The charm of the Fox clan's great beauty was like 100 barrels of honey being poured into a pond. It was enough to melt the bones of any human man. This was asking for benefits. The Fox clan was naturally greedy. They would not work for free. "What are you in a rush for?" "Since I said I would make you rich, of course I won't go back on my words." "Why don't you ask, when have I, Chu Tian, ever mistreated anyone?" Chu Tian heroically patted the fox girl's shoulder. "You can be assured that I will give 1/10 of all the profits we make in the forest to your demonic saint religion. Including the debts of the Minotaur tribes. Once these debts are confirmed, we will all receive a share." 1/10? Stingy. Dolores's misty eyes were filled with a glow of joy. Under Chu Tian's exploitation methods, the local tribes would have to pay back their old debts. Even if they gave 1/10 of the profits to the Fox clan, it would still be a sizable amount. The Fox clan did not put in any effort at all. They were only acting as intermediaries and agents, so these benefits were basically free. Especially the debts. They were not just debts, they were simply usury loans. If the famine became longer and the locals owed more and more money, the Fox clan would be able to lie down and earn large amounts of money. Dolores's attitude towards Chu Tian clearly became better. "Sir City Lord, what can I help you with?" "I need information. I need information on all the locals that Green City can rope in, as well as the hunting areas of the locals." Chu Tian felt goosebumps rise on his skin when he heard the fox girl's bone-melting voice. "Also, I want all the priests to help me make a batch of things." The hunting areas were the resources that the locals relied on to survive. The forest locals had a 100% hunting culture, so they did not know how to farm or fish. The hunting areas were the only source of food for the tribe. A large tribe's hunting area was at most 200 miles wide. Chu Tian wanted to completely cut off the locals' limited source of food. With the Fox clan's information and Chu Tian's methods, this matter was completely possible. In the future, when the army or mercenaries camped in the wilderness, there would be a beast-repelling array that could be used to defend against demon beasts. This beast-repelling array was similar to the beast-luring array. The beast-luring array used auras, pheromones, sounds, and smells to lure in demon beasts, while the beast-repelling array was the opposite. It was used to chase away demon beasts. Chu Tian brought Dolores and the several dozen Fox clan priests to help. These Fox clan's battle strength was not high, but they were all genuine true spirit cultivators. Moreover, the Fox clan had studied source energy arrays, so they only used 2 days to make 200 level 3 Earth Dragon beast repelling talismans. The Earth Dragon repelling talisman simulated the aura of the Earth Dragon beast. The Earth Dragon beast was a very strong demon beast that could hunt down demon beasts that were level 3, and it did not have any natural enemies of the same level. This talisman was not eye-catching and normal people could not sense its existence. But wild beasts and demon beasts could sense this faint aura. When the beast-repelling talisman was placed in the local tribe's hunting area, each talisman could cover several dozen miles. All the demon beasts would immediately run away when they sensed the Earth Dragon, not lingering around. Chu Tian was certain that in just 3-5 days, the locals would fall into chaos. Those who were starving would be even more starving, and those who weren't starving would be anxious. At this time, Chu Tian would have the Fox clan spread the news in the forest, saying that there was a human company in the forest and that they could buy large amounts of food at a low price. The reaction of the locals could be imagined without even needing to guess. Chu Tian would use the same trick again, using food as a condition to control them. Chu Tian was just one person and the Fox clan was just a proxy, so the locals had no choice but to accept it. Once Chu Tian stopped supplying them with food, they would have no other choice. Therefore, for the sake of survival, they would most likely choose to compromise in the end. This plan was very simple, but it couldn't be denied that it was a very practical plan. With the effects of the beast-repelling talisman and the spatial transportation ability, Chu Tian could completely control the lives of these locals. In the end, not only would they be eaten by Chu Tian, they would also owe a large amount of money and they would have to be grateful to him in the end. This was too sinister. Dolores was already filled with admiration towards Chu Tian. This mysterious man was very attractive, he seemed to always be able to do incredible things. Even the things he casually took out, like the most common beast-repelling talisman, would be a good thing in the market for the locals. With this small talisman, how many tribes would be able to avoid being harassed by demon beasts? Not to mention the mysterious space warehouse. We'll send the talisman to each tribe's hunting area and wait for it to take effect, making the tribes fall into chaos. Dolores looked a bit tired after running around for several days, but she was still full of energy. Her eyes were filled with anticipation, but there was also a trace of worry. We'll be targeting 9 tribes at the same time, with this many tribes adding up to 1 million people, will there be any problems on your side? Dolores was very clear. Chu Tian had messed it up, so he could just leave. The starving natives had nowhere else to go, so they either split up, causing their tribe to completely collapse. From then on, a large group of wandering forest robbers appeared in the forest, or they formed an alliance to attack other tribes and plunder their resources. The fox tribe also found it very difficult to survive in this area, providing for the consumption of 1 million people by themselves. I'm afraid that's not an easy task. It was normal for Dolores to have this kind of worry. This was a bit strenuous for Chu Tian. Although he had the full support of the southern summer country, the food that normal people ate was not suitable for these strong forest locals. Therefore, Chu Tian had to prepare source energy food and it had to be source energy food. Level 2 source energy food took up a large portion and even with Miracle Commerce's production capacity, this was still a large burden. But the young miss had already made preparations, so she had prepared a large amount of food in advance, so maintaining this for a while shouldn't be a problem. Chu Tian confidently said to Dolores, "Don't worry, as long as you follow me this time, the Fox clan's day of becoming rich is just around the corner." Dolores was a bit excited as she cupped her hands. "Many thanks, Sir City Lord." The Fox clan was the easiest to bribe. As long as there was profit, the Fox clan would follow you with all their hearts. Chu Tian was very clear on this point, so he sincerely said to the Fox clan beauty, "To be honest, I've been lacking people like you by my side. Although we don't often come in contact with humans, we still understand what kind of characters humans have." Dolores's eyes revealed a charming look. "If Sir City Lord needs it, our Fox clan's girls are very passionate." Humans always drooled over the Fox clan's girls, but Chu Tian clearly didn't mean this. Dolores also knew that this wasn't his meaning, but she had to twist it like this, making it seem like it was very ambiguous. If it was a normal man, they would have been tempted. This fox spirit. Chu Tian pretended to be a fool and gave a laugh. "The Fox clan is very smart and capable, having a keen sense of profit. With a bit of training, you'll be born merchants. We'll do a lot in this forest and what you'll have in the future will definitely surpass your imagination." Miracle Commerce's business was becoming bigger and bigger. Even if the young miss had outstanding abilities, it would be hard for her to take care of everything. Miracle Commerce needed a group of smart and reliable people to help them, and the Fox clan was very suitable to make up for Miracle Commerce's shortcomings. But because the Fox clan valued profit, if you could bribe them, others could also bribe them. This clan could not be completely assured. But coincidentally, the Fox clan in front of them were different. They believed in the demonic god religion and the little fox had become their highest spiritual leader. Even if the little fox didn't listen, it was still connected to Chu Tian. Without Chu Tian, it wouldn't exist. Unless they abandoned their faith, they wouldn't betray them. Faith was a kind of spiritual restraint, not to mention that their cultivation technique was related to their faith. If they abandoned the demonic god religion, they would lose all their cultivation techniques. The Fox clan was smart, they should understand the gains and losses. If Miracle Commerce had this group of smart Fox clan members, whether it was in terms of research or business, it would definitely be a large help. Now that everything had been arranged, let's see how the forest reacts. Chapter 8:13. Chu Tian took the initiative to scatter the flames. These were several spirit beasts. To be more accurate, they were several fox spirit beasts. It said that this race was one of the smartest of the spirit beasts. The fox race did not have strong physiques, so they could not cultivate body tempering or close combat cultivation techniques. However, they were very good at controlling certain kinds of energy. These fox race people gave Chu Tian a very strange feeling. There was a total of 4 of them, 3 males and 1 female. There was a fox race old man and 3 fox race youths. The fox race's beauties were also very famous. Although the fox race were spirit beasts, they were just like the rabbit race. Their appearances matched the mainstream aesthetics of the continent and they were different from the pure elves. The fox race women were more wanton and the fox race was very realistic and vain. They worshipped money, power, and strength, but it was because of these characteristics that the fox race was liked by the human nobles. It wasn't that Chu Tian had never seen the fox race before. Actually, back in South Sky City, he had seen the fox race slaves in the Een Corpse Valley's black market. However, the fox race people in front of him were wearing very strange clothes. They were wearing large white robes and holding strange staves in their hands. There was a mysterious symbol that was different from the mainstream runes of the continent, but it was filled with power that covered their robes and staves. "Who are you?" A fox race youth came out and scolded, "Why are you injuring the spirit monkeys?" This was most likely a local. But was he an idiot? These damn monkeys sneak attacked father, was he supposed to just stand here and let them hit him? Chu Tian looked at the old man in the middle. This old man's aura was very deep, perhaps he was not a normal person. Actually, in the depths of the forest of chaos, even if it was a small tribe, Chu Tian did not dare be careless. After all, a small tribe that could survive here would not lose to a large tribe. Misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Chu Tian sheathed his sword. A strong dragon could not suppress a local snake. He was going to be the city lord here in the future, so it was best if he didn't offend these locals. In order to show his respect and friendliness, he deliberately used the spirit beast language to say, "I am just a traveler that came from afar. This is my first time here and I'm not familiar with this place, so I accidentally entered this place. If I have disturbed you, I will leave now." "Grandfather, this fellow is so sneaky, he definitely isn't a good thing." Another young fox said to the old man beside him, "I think he's most likely a spy sent by the druids and shamans. How about we lock him up and interrogate him first?" Druids, shamans? Chu Tian's eyes flashed with a strange glow. He had seen these 2 terms in ancient texts, but he never thought that he would see them one day. This made Chu Tian a bit surprised. But these ancient sects, did they still exist in this era? The old fox man clearly saw Chu Tian's strange gaze. How could a foreign traveler know about the druids and shamans? Don't you feel like you're trying to cover it up? This was really a misunderstanding. The current situation is very tense, I would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. The old fox man gave an order to the fox woman beside him in a low voice, "Dolores, go and take him down." The oldest of the 3 young fox youths, as well as the only female among them, walked out. This woman had a full figure and a head full of silver white hair. She looked around 24 or 25 years old in a human's age, just in the middle of growing mature. The fox race's unique charm made her look even more enchanting. "This really is a misunderstanding, you don't need to be this nervous." Chu Tian looked like he had a headache, "I don't like hitting women." Dolores did not waste words and took out a bottle filled with incantations from her chest. Chu Tian could not recognize the strange incantations, but from the style, it seemed to be quite ancient. Perhaps only the young miss would be able to recognize it. But what attracted Chu Tian's attention was not the incantations on the bottle, but rather the thing inside the bottle. It was a ball of purple soul energy. A small bottle could contain soul energy. These natives weren't bad. Dolores held the bottle with both hands and devoutly said, "Great demonic god, please listen to my call and bestow me with great power." The small bottle quickly lit up and Chu Tian knit his brows. This was the first time he had seen a move that even he could not understand. The bottle cap was suddenly pushed open by a burst of energy. The soul dispersed evenly into the air, and Dolores seemed to be focusing on elemental energy inside. The originally transparent soul body was like an empty water bottle that was suddenly filled, and it finally transformed into a huge green creature. It landed on the grass, and a wave of fiendish aura pervaded the air. This was a 6-meter-tall praying mantis. It looked like it had material form, but it was not a spirit or a real-life form. It just existed in a special form between the two. Chu Tian was stunned. Soul secret technique? Undead secret technique? No, it didn't seem like it. What kind of strange move was this? While Chu Tian was in a daze, the mantis waved its arms and 2 green energy blades quickly flew out. Wherever they went, 2 deep marks were left on the ground. Chu Tian had no choice but to cut down with his sword again. The netherworld sword released a strong flame and the energy blades were cut in half. The mantis flew into the air at an extremely fast speed. The 2 green blades were like a wild storm as they wildly chopped down. Chu Tian quickly waved his sword left and right to block. In just a breath's time, the blades clashed several dozen times and the sharp sword chi destroyed the surrounding trees. This thing was not weak. It was at least in the peak 9th awakened soul layer. Chu Tian did not want to offend these locals, so he did not release his source spirit and did not use his full strength. If this young fox woman had this kind of method, then how strong was the old man behind her? Even if he used his full strength, he might not be able to defeat her. This kind of situation was a bit disadvantageous to him. The Fox clan youths saw that the illusory mantis could not take down Chu Tian after a long time. They immediately took out a whistle from their chest and blew on it. The vigorous spirit monkeys came back, "Take him down." This mantis was a bit strained. If all these damned monkeys attacked together, it would be a mess. "Fox, what are you looking at? It's time for you to make a move." The little fox stretched out its claws and yawned. Then it casually took a deep breath and the incomparably fierce mantis body suddenly exploded. It turned into a cloud of smoke that was swallowed by the little fox. Dolores's expression changed. "My illusory mantis." The little fox suddenly spat out the soul it had sucked into its stomach. The soul turned back into a giant praying mantis, but it was different from the energy praying mantis from before. The praying mantis that the little fox had summoned was completely solid. It was almost exactly the same as a living phantom mantis. Its aura, strength, and abilities were all perfectly similar to the illusory mantis when it was alive. This was simply a living creature. At the very least, it was several times stronger than the one summoned by Dolores. As for the surrounding monkeys, the little fox's eyes flashed with disdain and it suddenly jumped into the air. Its small body instantly turned into a large fox as it landed on the ground. Its 3 white furry tails swayed behind it and its 2 eyes released a strange green glow. An invisible energy was released. The spiritual monkeys that were prepared to attack Chu Tian trembled. When they landed on the ground, their eyes had all turned green. It was clear that their minds had been controlled. They all lined up in front of the fox, obedient as if they were the fox's pets. The fox proudly licked its claws and looked at the Fox clan members with a condescending gaze. Its gaze clearly said, "You clowns, you still dare to use this kind of insignificant skill in front of this fox?" Chu Tian was stunned. Damn it, when did this fox become so powerful? When the mantis was summoned, it was already close to the true spirit realm. As for the several white spiritual monkeys, they were all at the 7th to 8th awakened soul layer. Chu Tian also noticed that when the little fox first transformed in the southern summer country, it only had 2 tails, but now it had 3 tails. From a 2-tailed fox to a 3-tailed fox, did this mean that its strength had increased by a level? The food it ate in the Flower Fairy tribe was enough to make several true spirit realm experts. Now it seemed like it wasn't completely wasted. This. Not only were the Fox Clan youths shocked, even the calm old fox man's eyes almost popped out. He shouted with a face filled with excitement, "Demonic God, it's the demonic God, it's the great demonic God." The old fox man excitedly kneeled down. The 3 Fox Clan youths also had shocked expressions on their faces. This mysterious fox's strength and appearance was very similar to the legendary king of 10,000 demons. Could it be that the demonic god had returned to this world? The little fox's eyes were filled with suspicion. It did not know what these fellows were doing. Quickly go. Immediately inform the others to welcome Sir Demonic God. With the demonic god's descent, our sect will prosper. After a few minutes, several thousand Fox Clan members wildly ran out. When they saw the little fox, they all knelt down on the ground and shouted, "Long live the demonic god," their faces filled with devotion. The little fox did not understand what was happening at first, but with its intelligence, how could it not understand? These fellows clearly worshipped it. Since they worshipped this fox, how could this fox not accept it? The old fox man excitedly said, "We didn't know that the demonic god had descended, we have offended you. We ask the demonic god to forgive us." These Fox Clan members all looked at it with fanatical expressions. The little fox gave a snort, not used to this kind of scene. Chu Tian did not understand what was happening, but these Fox Clan spirit beasts seemed to worship this damn fox, so it saved him some energy. He immediately walked forward and said, Everyone, I've already said that this was a misunderstanding. Since this damn fox, this demonic god is someone you know, that means we are not enemies. Right. Quickly invite the demonic god into the temple. We will use all of our clan's power to worship the demonic god. Chapter 8:14. Chu Tian's plan was unexpectedly smooth, at least it was very smooth at the beginning. Chu Tian's beast-repelling talismans were very effective, driving away most of the prey in the native hunting area. This caused the number of demon beasts to decrease by a large amount. Not to mention the daily harvest, it was not even a fifth of what it was a few days ago. This was simply adding hail to snow. Now even the tribes that lacked food were beginning to worry seeing this situation. Those tribes that had already started to starve were now running around like ants on a hot pan. The large tribes began to study it. There had to be some kind of geological change in the forest. It could be a natural energy fluctuation, a change in the spiritual vein, or a natural disaster. Of course, it could also be a man-made disaster. In short, there was less prey. Living in the forest of chaos, it wasn't good to have too many demon beasts around, it could easily threaten the tribe's safety. Moreover, areas with a high density of demon beasts would increase the chances of high-level demon beasts appearing, but it wasn't good to have too few demon beasts either. The locals relied on hunting and the forest environment was not suitable for farming. The current situation was very dangerous and it was unknown how long it would last. There were already several tribes that couldn't hold on any longer. Move away. This was not a small matter. This was not something that could be decided in an instant. The forest of chaos was filled with dangers, especially in the depths of the forest. There were many powerful demon beasts' territories, as well as many low-key but dangerous tribes. There were also many fierce forest robbers and all kinds of dangers were hard to predict. Who didn't want to live a stable life? Who would want to embark on a dangerous path with an unknown future? Moreover, even if they moved away, they still had to make preparations. They would need to spend at least 10-15 days exploring their new living environment and prepare rations for the journey. If they did this, their tribe would have died long ago. Since things had reached this point, there was only one way, steal. In this savage land, using force was always the best way to solve problems, and it was the basic way to survive. If there was no food, they would steal food, and if there were no resources, they would steal resources. This was the natural order of the forest races, and it was also why the dark forest laws were so prevalent. When two tribes were together, the other side wouldn't move against you now, but that didn't mean they wouldn't move against you forever. If there was a famine or other reasons, two tribes that had a good relationship with each other would instantly fight. Those who didn't have food would snatch food, while those who had food would be wary of suspicion, or perhaps they would take advantage of the situation and attack the other party first to prevent future troubles. In short, this matter had already become a tradition in the Forest of Chaos. The entire forest was filled with the sound of knives being sharpened. It was like a barrel of gunpowder exploding. An unprecedented battle was about to erupt. Chu Tian's plan could be said to be successful up to this point. But before the second step could be carried out, an unexpected change occurred. Hushao Forest, a large fox tribe to the southeast of Green City. They had around 200,000 people and had lived here for 43 years, so they could be considered an old tribe. The Tiger Tribe warriors raised their weapons and roared out. This tribe had already begun to gather their troops. The Tiger Tribe's chief decided to personally lead 30,000 elite warriors to launch a sneak attack on the Lizard Tribe not far away. The Lizard Tribe lived in the wetlands and had the habit of storing food. As long as they were eliminated, it would solve the tribe's urgent need. When the Tiger Tribe people were busy gathering their troops, a strange figure appeared in front of the Tiger Tribe's gate. This was a Goat Tribe spirit beast with an ugly old face. He was wearing a large robe and his hands and neck were covered in bone ornaments. He was also holding a long staff in his hand, looking very strange. "Who are you? You actually dare charge into the Tiger Tribe?" Before he even finished speaking, the Goat Tribe waved his hand and several Tiger Tribe men fell to the ground, foaming at the mouth and twitching. No one knew what they had done. This Goat Tribe person swaggered into the Tiger Tribe, but since he charged in like this, he naturally attracted the attention of many people and was immediately surrounded. The Tiger Tribe chief came out and coldly looked over. "Shaman sorcerer? What are you doing here?" The shaman sorcerer gave a laugh. "I'm here to show the chief the way." "Show the way? What way?" "The Tiger Tribe wants food, so attacking our neighbors is not a good idea. How we do things is not up to you swindlers to tell us what to do. Why don't you take a longer view?" The shaman sorcerer ignored him and suddenly said, "Green City has stored food for several decades, so why can those gnomes live in the city and have large amounts of food while you guys can only hide in the forest? In my opinion, we should directly attack Green City and take over Green City. At that time, not to mention a temporary problem, we won't have to worry about food for 3-5 years. The Tiger Tribe chief's face fell. "What did you say?" "The ogres, lizard men, snake tribes, and the southern tribes have all come to an agreement and are prepared to attack Green City together to steal food." The shaman sorcerer said this before turning around. "The gnomes and the green religion have already declined in the last few decades, so this is the best time. As for whether the Tiger Tribe wants to join in, that will depend on the chief's decision." Green City's acting city lord, the gnome Clark, had a worried frown on his face. The gnomes were related to the elves, but they were not a mix between the elves and other races. The gnomes were an independent race, a branch of the elves in the ancient times, belonging to the lesser elves. It was like the relationship between the halflings and humans. Their bloodlines were very similar, but they had already evolved into two different races. The gnomes were around the same height as the dwarves and their other characteristics were similar to the elves. The gnomes had a very smart mind and they liked to study knowledge and truth, studying profound source energy arrays. Although they loved nature like the elves and didn't like fighting, they were not as inflexible as the elves. The gnomes had a very good strength in the forest. When the gnomes in this area were at their peak, there were several million of them and they were divided into several dozen tribes. Although they were all independent, they had a common belief, which was the green religion. The city the gnomes spent 500 years to build was this Green City. The gnomes had a good strength, but compared to the true giants of the forest, they were still lacking. Those giants didn't want to touch the other side's sensitive nerves, so they didn't directly take Green City. They just thought of ways to slowly nibble away at it. The Lich from the Dragon's Ridge brought the undead religion. The spirit beasts from the savage highlands brought the shaman religion. The druids who didn't like fighting were inexplicably drawn in. After several decades of fighting, the strongest green religion had already been destroyed. When the gnomes finally felt that they couldn't control this city anymore, the Eternal Forest's elven king threw out an olive branch to the gnomes, willing to accept these close relatives. Clark and the gnome elder didn't even think about it before agreeing. The gnomes did not build Green City to fight for fame, rather they just wanted to build a home for the gnomes to peacefully study in. Who would have thought that after this home became rich, it would attract so many greedy eyes? Compared to the Dragon's Ridge and the Savage Highlands, joining the Eternal Forest was the best result for the gnomes. The Eternal Forest's elves were close relatives to the gnomes and the elves were gentle and kind, not making things hard for the gnomes. The Elven King even promised that the gnomes could continue to study and live in Green City, no different from before. The gnomes had no desire for power and wealth. It didn't matter who was the master of the city, it was fine as long as they didn't drive the gnomes away. Clark was very happy to complete the agreement with the Elven King. The Eternal Forest had already announced that Green City would be incorporated into their sphere of influence and they would be protected by the Eternal Forest from now on. The gnomes were filled with anticipation as they waited. As long as the Eternal Forest stationed a strong elven army in Green City and sent a person with enough prestige to become the Green City Lord, would the shaman religion and the undead religion still be this arrogant? Even if they had the Dragon's Ridge or the Savage Highlands behind them, the Eternal Forest had already taken the initiative in Green City. After so many days had passed, there was no news from the Eternal Forest at all. Not long after, a secret letter was sent into Clark's hands. When Clark opened the Elven King's personal letter, he almost jumped into the ceiling. Green City's position was too special and there were many large influences involved, so it was easy to cause disputes. So the Elven Council did not agree and there was no hope for the Elven army. But the kind Elven King gave Green City a city lord. Clark was disappointed, but he thought that the gnomes still had a bit of strength. If the elves could send several peak experts here, even without the Elven army, they would be able to deter thieves. Who would have thought that the Elven King would give Green City's city lord to a human he had never heard of before? Weak. No fame. And a human. Clark was so angry that he almost fainted. There were no human powers in the Forest of Chaos and all the humans that came here were outsiders. Outsiders meant that they had no foundation here. A human without any foundation coming to this complicated Green City to be the city lord, wasn't it child's play? Even if the gnomes obeyed, would the other races obeyed? When Clark was anxiously thinking of how to solve this, a gnome suddenly ran over, acting City Lord Clark, something has appeared in the forest again. What? There were quite a few things that had happened in the forest recently. There was famine, plague, and various disasters. Although there was no direct evidence, Clark believed that these were all done by those fellows. They just wanted to create chaos, giving the Eternal Forest's influence more resistance. This gnome adjutant said with a head covered in sweat, there are several tribes that have formed an alliance because of food, preparing to attack Green City. What? Clark felt his head grow bigger. These tribes actually wanted to attack Green City. Green City had 1.5 million residents and the gnome population had decreased in recent years. This was originally a gnome city and there weren't many gnomes left, but there were still around 600,000 that occupied a small half. The gnomes were good at handling and storing food. Green City had developed for so many years, so their food reserves were very rich. In normal situations, the locals would plunder from each other and no one dared to attack Green City. This was because even if the green religion was weak, they were not something the locals could provoke. Who would have thought that they would ally together to attack Green City? This was simply madness. There were several tribes that had over 1 million people. Even if each tribe sent 50,000 people, it would still be a shocking number. Even if they couldn't attack Green City, they would still cause large losses to Green City. Clark could already smell an unusual aura behind this matter. If most of Green City was destroyed and occupied by the locals, the Eternal Forest would not be able to take over the city. At least it was like this from a certain person's point of view. This matter was very likely to be a plot instigated by the enemy. Chapter 8:15. Did you make a mistake? Chu Tian couldn't help asking Dolores beside him, how does this fellow look like a god? Dolores's face was filled with sincerity. When she heard Chu Tian say this, she angrily glared at him, you dare insult the great demonic god, that means you're going against my demonic god religion. Demonic god religion? I've never heard of it before. But it should be a religion similar to the Druid religion or Shaman religion. It wasn't a human sect like the heavenly demon cult, there was a fundamental difference between the two. Sects focused on passing down cultivation techniques, so their members were very concentrated, belonging to a very cohesive force. Religious forces focused on passing down faith, of course they also had their own cultivation techniques, but their members weren't as concentrated. The same faith could not only cross regions, it could even cross races. What is going on with your demonic god religion? Chu Tian ignored Dolores's hostile gaze, there's also the druids and shamans. How many religions are there in this place? Dolores didn't want to talk to this fellow who had injured the spirit monkey and disrespected the demonic god, but the demonic god was brought here by him, so Dolores could only give a simple explanation. It turned out that religion was very popular in the depths of the Forest of Chaos. After all, this forest was too ancient, so there were many ancient things that had been passed down. Although there were many religions, in this area, the strongest were the Druid religion, the Shaman religion, the Undead religion, and the Green religion. As for the demonic god religion that the Fox people believed in, it could only be considered a second-rate power. Green religion? Chu Tian was stunned, what relationship does the Green religion have with Green City? This fellow really seemed like an outsider, he didn't even know this. The Green religion is a group of fellows that believe in the forest god and their religion is a branch of the elves. The Green religion had a large influence in the forest before, but now they have declined and can't compare to the druids and shamans. So it was like this. The Green religion was a branch of the elves, so it was no wonder the Elven King could obtain Green City through diplomacy. Chu Tian never thought that the powers here would be this complicated. Just these religions were enough to give him a headache. This was because the believers of the churches were very fanatical and this kind of person was the most troublesome to deal with. The cultivation techniques of these religious believers were very special. For example, if a fire god religion believer had a water-attributed source spirit, cultivating a fire-attributed cultivation technique was simply seeking death. But if they cultivated a fire-attributed cultivation technique, as long as their faith was strong enough, the power of faith could prevent the cultivation technique from backfiring on their source spirit. Therefore, the deeper their faith, the deeper their cultivation would be. Therefore, the cultivation techniques passed down by religions were mostly related to their faith. The object of worship of these religious believers was not as simple as spiritual sustenance, rather it was related to their cultivation, so the believers would be more fanatical and devout. The move Dolores had just used was clearly a summoning technique similar to the fox's. This summoning technique had never been seen in any cultivation technique, so even Chu Tian did not understand it. It should be a special demonic technique used by the ancient demon race. It was almost certain that normal people could not use this demonic technique. Even if Chu Tian wanted to learn it, he couldn't, but these fox people could use it. They were not from the ancient demon race. There was only one possibility. A certain ancient demonic god had used a certain method to create this religion, allowing these low-level beings to believe in it and use its power. Chu Tian did not know the motivation of the ancient demonic gods to create this religion, but there was a saying that the faith of all living beings was a great power and the demonic gods could absorb the power of faith to become stronger. If it was like this, the little fox's ancestor might have a connection with these fox people. There was a tall temple in the center of the local tribe. The temple was made from the bones of giant beasts and giant boulders, being over 100 meters tall. It was very grand and magnificent, but looking at how it had been eroded by the wind, this temple had a very long history. This tribe was very small, with a total population of less than 20,000 people. Don't think that they were easy to bully just because they were small. The entire tribe was filled with devout believers of the demonic god religion, and most of them could summon demon beasts to fight. Other than that, the demonic god religion was proficient in taming beasts, just like the spirit monkeys outside the forest. They were all tamed by the demonic god religion, so they could not be underestimated. At least they could sweep through any tribe on the outside. The little fox had already turned back to its original form. It was only the size of a palm, but it was sent to the high altar by the zealous believers, receiving the prayers of the fox people kneeling down. The little fox also quickly got into its role. Although it was only a little big, it curled its tail and sat upright on the ground. Its pair of black eyes were shining, and it had a dignified posture like a lion. It swept its gaze across the crowd and then raised its paw, indicating for everyone to rise. Chu Tian rolled his eyes, too lazy to watch this fox act cool. He walked around by himself. There were many totems in the temple, and the one that appeared the most frequently was a fierce and majestic 9-tailed demon fox. The young miss had records of the 9-tailed demon fox in her heavenly book memories. Legend has it that in the ancient demon race that coexisted with gods and demons in the great ancient era, the 9-tailed demon fox was the ruler of 10,000 demons, the king of 10,000 demons. They grasped the strongest demonic techniques of the demon race, and their might could even make gods and demons retreat. It seemed like the little fox really was the 9-tailed demon fox's descendant. Chu Tian was still a little confused. The 9-tailed demon fox's descendant had been bred in a 10,000-year-old Yin corpse for 10,000 years. After being born in that evil environment, the little fox not only had its ancestors' abilities, it also seemed like it had the ability to break through evil energies. At this time, there were excited and joyful cheers coming from the temple. The little fox was on a stone slab, using its fingernails to write a large piece of strange content. Chu Tian did not recognize any of these words. It should be the language of the demon race. From the looks of joy in the followers' eyes, this should be a method to use a certain demonic technique. These followers all bowed their heads in thanks. When the ceremony finished, the Fox clan's men, women, and children all brought in all kinds of good things. There were spiritual fruits, crystals, and demon jades, all of which were used to worship the little fox. The little fox was happy to the point of forgetting home. It had never been worshipped like this before, with all these good things being given to it. Compared to this, its master was too vile, constantly beating it for eating too much. The little fox's proud appearance made Chu Tian want to punch it, but Chu Tian was very clear in his heart that if he hit the fox in this situation, he would quickly be beaten up by the crazy believers. He would endure it for now. In the end, this was an unexpected harvest. Chu Tian came to Green City to gather information and also to see if he could rope in a few locals. However, he did not have much hope because the locals here were very strong and it would not be easy for an outsider like Chu Tian to enter their ranks. Now it was good, he had saved quite a bit of effort. This demonic god religion was a bit weak, but being able to stand here meant that they had some strength. Moreover, they had lived here for many years, so they had a good understanding of the situation around Green City. They were the allies Chu Tian needed the most. Everyone should have seen that I am a companion of your demonic god, so we are not enemies. With these words, everyone was stunned. They all looked at the little fox that was gorging itself on the food. The little fox felt everyone's gaze and suddenly stopped. It looked up at Chu Tian and its heart instantly bloomed with joy. Master, Master, I never thought that there would be a day where you would ask this fox for help. As long as this fox gives the order, I will strip you naked and give you a spanking to take revenge for you spanking my butt. Chu Tian's eyes flashed with a fierce glow as he looked at it. The little fox gave a snort and could only nod before continuing to eat. The old fox man, who was also the high priest, quickly stood up. "Since your excellency is the demonic god's friend, then of course you are our most respected guest. If there is anything we can help you with, our demonic god religion will not decline." This was more like it. Chu Tian cleared his throat. "Since the high priest has said this, I will honestly introduce myself. Actually, I am the new city lord of Green City, and I came here alone this time mainly to inquire about the situation." Green City's city lord? Everyone looked at him with a strange expression. When did the Green City's city lord become a human? Wasn't this city conquered by the elves just a few days ago? The relationship between the elves and humans was not good, it could even be said to be very unfriendly. How could the elves give an important city like Green City to a human? However, they had no choice but to believe it. Chu Tian directly took out the elves' things. The fox people were in an uproar. They never would have thought that this young man would be the city lord appointed by the Eternal Forest. If he could really sit in the city lord position, then the surrounding 1,000 miles would be his territory. These demonic god religion followers would naturally accept the city lord's management. The high priest was the calmest. He gave a few soft coughs. "Although your excellency is the city lord, with Green City's situation, if you want to sit in the city lord's throne, I'm afraid it won't be an easy matter." Chu Tian liked dealing with smart people. This would save him a lot of effort. Although most of the fox people were acting like a group of idiots, worshipping this damn fox and fawning over him, the fox race had the highest intelligence among the spirit beasts. This was a very smart race, and as long as they were properly trained, they would become natural profiteers or sly politicians. For the high priest to be the leader of these people, he could see the relationship between their demonic god and this young man. The demonic god came with this young man, and from the young man's disrespectful gaze towards the demonic god, perhaps even their demonic god had to compromise with Yao. This young man called himself Green City's city lord, but he came alone without any troops. Although his strength wasn't bad, it was only not bad. Just the demonic god religion alone had over 50 people that could deal with him. Chapter 8:16. Chu Tian had made a mistake. It couldn't be said that it was a mistake, the plan itself was not a problem. He would first cut off the food of the large tribes, and when they were begging for a miracle, the fox tribe would take this chance to release the news of the mysterious human merchant. When these natives heard that the Minotaurs in the Minotaur Valley, because of trading with this human merchant, not only did nothing happen to them during the famine, but they even ate and drank well every day, they would definitely go to the Minotaur Valley outside to investigate the situation. Who didn't know that the Minotaurs were the stupidest and were the first to starve to death? Now that they were eating and drinking, how could the other tribes not be jealous? The human merchant was very resourceful, no matter how much food they needed, they would be able to supply it. On one hand, he could supply them with high-quality food, and on the other hand, he could cut off the other food sources. These locals would be tied down by Chu Tian in the end, and Chu Tian's goal would be achieved. The problem now was that when Chu Tian had just started the first step of his plan, and before he could even start the second step, Dolores had already rushed over. There was a very urgent piece of news that over 10 tribes were working together to attack Green City. The situation is not good this time. Dolores said with a face of worry, "It's like we've smashed our own feet with a rock." "No, it's not right." Chu Tian knit his brows and thought about it for a few minutes. "This can't be right. These tribes normally don't interact with each other and are suspicious of each other. How could they form an alliance in just 2-3 days? This doesn't make sense." Dolores had already noticed this suspicious point. Although Green City's gnomes are very weak, they are not something these normal tribes would dare challenge. "I also suspect that there is a mastermind behind this." Chu Tian nodded. There was no need to doubt it, this was certain. Chu Tian had already been in the Fox clan for a week, and he already had a good understanding of Green City. This city's manager and founder were all gnomes. Although the gnomes were not as strong as the elves, they could be considered one of the most knowledgeable races in the forest. The gnomes were different from the wood elves, who had no desires. The gnomes were strict by nature and had a strong thirst for knowledge, therefore the gnomes had high attainments in source energy arrays, alchemy, and talismans. The reason Green City could maintain its rich state for several hundred years was because the gnomes' production had brought enough wealth to the city. The gnomes' equipment could be said to be very elite, and adding in the gnomes' talismans and traps, as well as various defensive facilities, they could definitely make Green City a city that was hard to conquer. If my guesses aren't wrong, the person behind this is most likely still in Green City. These locals can't conquer Green City, so they can only work together. Chu Tian asked Dolores, with your intuition, who do you think is the most suspicious? Dolores said without even thinking, the shaman religion or the undead religion. Chu Tian said with a slight nod, we need to make a trip to Green City. Why are we going to Green City? Of course it's to see the acting city lord. Chu Tian was an outsider and it was hard for outsiders to enter Green City, so he needed the Fox clan's help. Dolores and Chu Tian shared a common interest, so of course she agreed without even thinking about it. The demonic god religion had a bit of influence in Green City. Although the Fox clan was small, the Fox people had good brains, so they had a few stores in the city that mainly sold materials. Chu Tian disguised himself as a fox person and was led by Dolores, so it was much easier for them to enter Green City. Green City had already been established for 500 years. This was not considered too old in the Forest of Chaos, and this city had always been under the control of the Green Religion. The Green Religion was a religion of the elves, mainly believing in the forest god. The gnomes at their peak had over 1 million people, so they could be considered quite a large power. In the last few decades, the Green Religion had quickly declined. The newly risen druid warriors, necromancers, and shaman sorcerers ran amok in Green City. They were already a serious threat to the gnomes. Although the gnomes were still the masters of Green City in name, they had already been divided. They were hindered by these three religions, and adding in the several decades of chaos, the influence of the Green Religion had quickly declined. Chu Tian was currently standing in front of Green City. This is Green City? It really is a bit different from what I imagined. The cities in the Forest of Chaos were not something the Southern Summer Country could compare to. Even the Southern Summer Imperial City could not compare to a tenth of this place. When Chu Tian saw Green City, his first impression was, it was grand, natural, and picturesque. Most of the cities in the Forest of Chaos did not have city walls because there was no meaning in having a city wall in a place like this. Although the Green City in front of him did not have city walls, because it was built in a vast mountain range, the mountain range surrounding it was a natural city wall. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, it would have been hard to imagine that such a city would suddenly appear in the rugged and precipitous mountains. Green City did not have a lot of people, but it was several times larger than the Southern Summer Imperial City. The entire city was scattered among the mountains, so the distribution was very interesting. If one looked at it from a macro perspective, it would look like a trapezoid shape. There were many scattered castles, some at the foot of the mountain, some at the waist of the mountain, and some at the top of the mountain. Sometimes there were 2 castles in the middle that were separated by a several 100-meter deep mountain stream that was only connected by a drawbridge. There were countless open areas in the middle of the mountain range, which were large amounts of planting and breeding areas. There was a main peak in the middle of the mountain range. It was originally a towering mountain, but the top half of it had been excavated and turned into a giant white castle. Half was a mountain and the other half was a city. Sitting at the peak of the mountain range, surrounded by clouds, it was like a city in the sky. This was a very special place. The city built by the gnomes was completely different from the humans. In the large cities that humans lived in, the streets were orderly and the tall buildings were scattered. They were tightly packed together and were surrounded by city walls. Green City's appearance was completely different. The entire city was made up of over 100 large and small castles, and each castle could be considered a small city. The castles surrounded the mountains in layers, forming a trapezoid shape. Although they were scattered very loosely, they were still very orderly. If a human city was a flat structure, then this city would be a 3-dimensional structure. The entire green city was perfectly integrated with nature. These cities that were carved out of the mountains or built out of thin air looked disorderly on the surface, but each one of Green City's buildings was very unique. The spiritual energy here was very rich, and there were countless spirit veins gathered here, giving birth to countless heaven and earth treasures, but there were no fierce beasts. This was very rare in the Forest of Chaos. In this endless mountain range, it was unknown how many precious mines were hidden. It was definitely a good place for long-term development. Ha, ha, ha. Chu Tian laughed a few times. A city in the mountains, a mountain in the city, a forest surrounding a river surrounding a mountain range, and a mountain range surrounding a city. My city looks very good. But I see that the city has not even been developed by 10% and the entire mountain range has not even been developed by 2%. I'm prepared to connect all of this together and create a large city-state that can hold several tens of millions of people, making it the largest city in the Forest of Chaos. What do you think? Sir City Lord, you seem to be happy too early. Dolores rolled her eyes and disagreed with Chu Tian's grand ambitions. Don't forget, your city will be captured by a group of people. It might even turn to ashes in a few days. Those locals. Pay. When would Great Master Chu Tian place them in his eyes? But speaking of this city was indeed better than imagined. The city the gnomes used 500 years to build had been taken advantage of by Chu Tian in the end. Not only was this place rich in spiritual energy, it was also in the center of the Forest of Chaos, making it the most suitable base for miracle commerce. If Chu Tian could gain a foothold here, he could use this place as the center and allow the company to expand. At that time, the Dragon's Ridge, the Titan Mountain Range, the Savage Highlands, the Eternal Forest, or the distant Western Sea or the dark underground world, would Chu Tian properly deal with them? The Forest of Chaos had the potential to become an empire. Of course, the premise was that they could unify this area, which was not an easy matter. Let's enter the city. Green City did not just have a natural mountain barrier, there were also many natural passages that could be used to enter Green City from all directions. Dolores led Chu Tian through a passage covered in white moonlight stones. Not only were there shrubs and green grass on both sides, there were also many tall trees. What shocked Chu Tian the most was that there was a large tree that looked like a human. It had a pair of thick arms and a giant spear in its hands. It was like a 10-meter-tall giant guard that was guarding the passage without moving. What is this? Chu Tian was a bit surprised. This thing looked like a tree-ant, but it was definitely not a tree-ant because Chu Tian could feel that this thing did not have a will and was a giant puppet life form. This is the Green Protector. Dolores explained, the Green religion studied the remains of the ancient war trees and finally cultivated a powerful life form. 100 years ago, Green City was filled with these powerful warriors, but after being attacked several times, they were all lost. In the last 10 years, there have been several disasters and a large number of them have died, so there aren't many left. Chu Tian continued walking with Dolores. There were at least 3 layers of barriers protecting this canyon. There was a reason why Green City could stand in this place. With these green protectors and the defenses of the passage, Green City could stop large forest powers from invading. As long as it wasn't a giant like the Eternal Forest, Green City could protect itself. Of course, that was the previous Green City. The current Green City was very weak and it was very bad with internal and external troubles. If it wasn't like this, why would the gnomes surrender to the Eternal Forest? The Elven Council was really a group of wooden heads, not wanting this good place that was delivered to their door. In the end, Chu Tian had picked up a large bargain. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.